Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Trak Racer TCR Cup here at MotorMotion E-Series. And we are now on the final part of the American leg. We're going to Daytona for round 6 of season 3. They are 3 rounds away now from the end of the season. It's the critical part of the season for bagging the points you need to get yourself into the right position to get in to the lead of the standings in the Teams Championship and the Drivers Championship as well. But as I said, we are here at Daytona International Speedway. 66 years of history at this fantastic oval circuit with the outfield and the infield for the upcoming race. And it is an endurance round this time out. That means we've got 30 minutes of qualifying ahead and a 90-minute race for Lobby 2, because we focused in on Lobby 1 the last time we had an endurance round in Nürburgring in round 3 to round out our European leg. And now here we are with the final endurance round to get the end of the American leg all done. Then we head over to Oceania for Bathurst and Suzuka to round out the season. What a fantastic circuit this is. We have got 12 corners and 3.5 miles. That's 5.7 kilometers of excellent racing ahead of us. So let's jump into the info and get ourselves started. So, of course, back in the commentary booth and the broadcasting team involving myself, George Cooke, Nick Pautasso lines up in the commentary booth next to me, and as always we have our legendary pit lane reporter in Andrew Scott, and a pleasure to be back in here for the Daytona International Raceway race here, round 6 with you chaps, and we will go to our qualifying in pretty short order, but let's hear from the lads before we get started. Nick, welcome back to the commentary box once again.
Oh, I mean, you had to drag me away from Daytona Beach there. I was really enjoying myself. I was sitting along the beaches there. The beautiful scenery that we have here at Daytona, been absolutely prestigious weather here. All sunshine, it's been absolutely perfect. No rain in the sky, no rain in the clouds. And yeah, I mean, it's what a place to race at, Daytona. Very legendary in the name itself, of course, being held with the Daytona 500, with the NASCAR series, and then also with the IMSA series for the Daytona 24-hour. It's such a legendary track, and it's great to see the TCR cars come back once again for this event as well. Last year was a sprint event. This time we're actually going for a 90-minute endurance, so I'll be very keen to see what the drivers are going to be lining themselves up with these Mazda 3 Group 4s. High tyre wear, a lot of tyre preservation, a lot of fuel saving as well. We could even potentially see some bump drafting to help some drivers out to get themselves up towards the grid. But don't know about you guys, about you as well. And Scott, obviously you being the tyre whisperer around here, you could tell us a little bit more about what it's all about saving the tyres around here and how quiet you need to be on that left-hand side of the car.
Yeah, g'day guys, g'day viewers. Yeah, it's a little bit hard on the tyres here. The tyres can drop off if you're not careful with them, but it's more about fuel around this circuit. I think it's going to be really interesting to see where each driver is shifting and how many laps they each get out of a tank. But of course, fuel and tyres are switched off for this 30 minutes quali session. So it will be hammer and tong for 30 minutes now as they work out who's going to be on pole. And I don't know about you guys, but you mentioned it, Spud. It is a little bit drafty in here, isn't it?
Certainly is quite drafty. Yep, I think the slipstream's going to be a big part of this race. It usually is with the outfield, with 2 very, very long parts of the circuit, and of course then through the bus stop chicane provides you a very, very good overtaking opportunity as well. And then in the race, it's going to be even more interesting with that slipstream. So the fuel is going to be a fascinating aspect of that today. So, of course, round 6, Daytona road course laps are going to be, quote-unquote, 90 minutes timed in total. It'll be in the afternoon as well. All racing tyres are permitted for this round. That means all compounds are mandatory. That means you have to go out there on the softs, you have to go out there on the mediums, and you have to go out there on the hards as well. That provides that extra layer of strategic thought that needs to go in, and then the execution becomes ever so more important with the different styles of tyre. Tuning prohibited as always. Drivers will be allowed to adjust their brake bias, and that is the only setting they've got at their fingertips. So there we go. Here's a little track map of Daytona International Racecourse. Of course, as I said before, 3.5 miles. And we've got the infield layout as well. That means you're going to be going through all the horseshoes, into the dog legs, back out onto the oval sector, and then through that bus stop chicane as well, known as the Le Mans chicane, just to interrupt that little area. And that's straight just before the Le Mans chicane, just by itself, is just over half a kilometer. So all in all, you're going to be having slipstream for well over 1.2 kilometers on this circuit, because while, yes, there are left-hand banking turns, you are going to essentially be running those as if they were straight lines. So we have got our qualifying session coming up in just a moment's time. We're going to jump into it straight away. And but a quick note, of course, that we are focusing today on Lobby 2, not Lobby 1. They got the featurette back in Nürburgring. Lobby 2 just had the results. So we'll have the Lobby 1 results up for you after qualifying and the race today for Lobby 2. Let's get into it. Let's head out on track, because as I hear it, the qualifying session is just about to begin. Righto, so out on circuit we go. We've got our usual lineup of drivers and a number of teams here. We did have all the teams in Lobby 1. Will be in for the endurance rear round in Nürburgring. Will be in Lobby 1 again for this round. That means we get to see all the drivers that didn't feature in the endurance round in Nürburgring on the broadcast last time, which is a nice thing to do. That means everyone's got the full 2-hour coverage, essentially, of their performance in the endurance round. Going to be a good one. Everyone on the softs, of course, everyone going to be going out for their laps, but 30 minutes to do it. That is plenty of time. So you just need to get a couple of bankers in and then start going for those improvements.
And absolutely, it's a very glorious day as well. All the cars, the sun is shining. There hasn't been any rain on the circuit, so the track conditions look absolutely marvelous to get the Mazda 3's Grip 4 machinery around this beautiful circuit. Obviously, the cargo planes are right next door to the Daytona racecourse. So obviously, when it comes to getting parts off the car and getting some new parts on it, they only have to have a bit of a short walk to the airport, get the components out of the cargo, and just place them on the cars. Maybe just a couple of tuning setups, maybe new rear wing, new front splitter, bit of aero package change there for these drivers. But it's all about just trying to maximize the straight line potential that the Mazda 3 has. It's always been known to be a very fast car on the straights. After a couple of balance of performance updates recently, it has been hampered a little bit on the straight line speed compared to other Grip 4 machinery. But overall, it looks to be a very good package that these drivers are having so far. So we have all of the drivers that didn't feature in Lobby 1. We have Tony Griffin for Mad Turtle Racing. Will be the first driver to cross the finish line to start his time lap. Mark Hasseldine for Hassel 1 Motorsport, one of the entries in car number 16. Dean Vanderson for CP Motorsports in the brand new livery scheme of the Aussie tyres. Then we have Matt Donetti, the teammate of Mark Hasseldine. Has obviously been showing some great performances, Matt Donetti. A couple of podiums next to his name. Hasn't got a win yet, so maybe potentially this one we might be able to find some luck in a 90-minute enduro. But as we go on board with Tony Griffin from Mad Turtle Racing, here we go, the infield section, going through the turns 2 and 3. It's a fast king, so no lift off here. Getting into the hairpin, which is the international horseshoe. Try and go for a bit of a wide line, hug the inside line, and then there's so much runoff on the exit, you can apply the power as much as you can, get a good exit, and then just brace yourself for this fast left king. Going full flat in these cars, there's no lift off whatsoever. Flat around turn 5, and then you're going into the dog leg, turn 6. Bit of a hard corner this one, because you're kind of braking and turning at the same time, so the car gets a little bit unsettled there. The car can chirp its tyres a little bit and just get a little bit problematic when it comes to the braking. Turn 7, turn 8, it comes into the outfield section where we go onto the banking for the first time on your hot lap. Oh, sorry, the second time as you're leaving turn 1. So onto the infamous banking at turn number 1, which you will see in the Daytona 500 races, which is now turn number 7 here for the infield. So it's a very long run here. Keep your car on the inside and then slide the car out. Now right up against the wall there, literally scraping your face along the wall on the outside there. Look for the board there, the number 1 board there, that's your braking point. Cut a bit of the bus stop there. Turns 8, 9 and 10, then coming out onto 11. Very nice exit there for Tony Griffin. Very conservative there. Obviously, it's all about getting that banker lap, as mentioned, and it's all about just trying to find that confidence through the Le Mans chicane, because it's a very tricky section, and it's a very problematic section of the track where you can get yourself an easy 3-second penalty next to your name if you cut one or cut all of them. And then coming on to this last final part, turns 12, where you're going to come through your lap time. So Tony Griffin, the first man to cross the line, sets the benchmark time for 1 minute 54.3, and that's not a bad way to start your lap with a rival in Mark Hasseldine, only 2 tenths behind, 54.6. Dean Vanderson 4 tenths clear. with a 53 flat, 53.8 next to his name. And then we have Colin Fee in P2. Andrew Anson's moved up into P4, but so far it is early days, but not a bad time so far. Now we have the real contenders for this. Steph Franson, the championship leader for Street to Track, has gone to the top with a 53 flat.
Yes, indeed. That is a statement and a half there. 53.063 from Steph Franson. Very nice work there. Does pip Dean van der Zandt by quite some margin. Doing a little bit, I suspect, of extra work there with his tyres, with his car. I mean, this is a situation where you can really rev out the cars. You don't need to be conservative on your fuel. You don't need to be conservative on your tyres. Maybe just a little bit on your out lap, just so that you're getting maximum grip when you jump on to the hot lap for the first time. But a few drivers have come across the line with a valid time. In fact, most of them now have come across the line. Excellent to see. Lines up with Andrew Scott goes P2, so takes that away from Dean van der Zandt as well. And that's going to be a 0.189 second gap. That's very, very small margins right now. And looks like the Me Cougars might be using a bit of strategic teamwork in this qualifying session. Of course, this is entirely allowed. The teams do run both cars together. It's a very sensible thing to be lining up to assist with a slipstream from your teammate. And that is being done to maximum effect right now by the Me Cougar team. And a quick update on the standings as well, just while we're at it. We do have Me Cougar leading the way in the team's title, followed by Hooncorp Esports and then Street to Track. 4-point difference between Hooncorp and Street to Track. Me Cougar sort of running away with things at the top at the moment. Then over in the Drivers' Championship, Steph Franson, of course, still leading the Drivers' Championship on 416 points, followed by Lewis Atkinson on 360. And then a 3-point gap back to Andrew Scott for Me Cougar. And equal points, 357 with Nick Pfaff, so really tight at the top there. Luke Stone still in the battle too, 351 points, 350 for Mick Hill, 345 for Matthew Joynton. So despite Steph Franson just being completely superfluous at the moment, there is still a fantastic battle happening in the Drivers' Championship, which we absolutely love to see. And I will also say, because we're in Florida here at Daytona, there is a nice little thing you can park up by the side of the road and watch the SpaceX Falcon Heavy go and launch off. So if you haven't looked at that Easter egg, go and find out, because it's absolutely very, very cool thing to go and check out. Of course, Cape Canaveral, not too far away from this fantastic circuit.
And as we saw there, we just saw that with the outboard footage of Ando Scott and Mick Hill. Obviously, Ando's really benefiting from that slipstream. He's probably going to go quicker in this section. It's going to push Mick Hill towards the finish line, which will obviously help him with his straight line speed. It's going to be the first man into the 52s, no, 53.2. So he only just fixed his time up, but he actually helped his teammate in Mick Hill get a little bit ahead of him. So that's a 53.5 on the name of Mick Hill. But those two are working very well together. Ando was 2/10 clear before he went into the Le Mans chicane there, but just a little bit of a bump draft, maybe just backed off the brakes a little bit, and he lost a tenth and a bit on the exit of the Le Mans chicane, and tried to get it back on that slipstream, and unfortunately it just cost him and compromised his time there. But it's all about the teamwork. The Tobit Cougar boys are working together. Obviously they must be in their own little comps, and they're basically trying to get each other the maximum that they can, and trying to get both cars up as high as they can, hopefully in the positions of 1 and 2. But who it will be, we'll find out at the end of the 30-minute session, where we are just about to go 8 minutes into this session, and with so far the championship leader in Steph Franson leading the way, a 10th clear. Yeah, so Andrew Scott, I mean, you obviously part of the Me Cougar team, big part, and you know, seeing the teamwork there is exactly what you would have been planning to do, and I'm surprised that we don't see many more teams out there trying that sort of tactic. Steph Franson has sort of tucked himself in behind, I believe that's Boris Blazanek in the war car, and so it's definitely a tactic to be looked at, especially in a long qualifying like this.
Yeah, the top speed really gets enhanced when you're drafting someone. It's somewhere around 12 or 13 kilometers an hour more over the line. So you definitely want to be doing it. The rule for the fellows this round was that you couldn't start your first flying lap inside someone's draft. But then, of course, after then, it's all bets are off, and you'll see quite a bit of drafting going on between now and the checkered flag.
Yeah, too right. And then, of course, with the tyre wear being basically nullified and the fuel wear, but basically with the fuel, you want to spend as much fuel as possible so that you can get to a low fuel run by the end of the race, or end of the qualifying session, I should say. The lighter the car is, the better it's going to feel, especially around that infield section.
Well, fuel's off for the quali, so that's not an issue. But
that is not an issue.
Definitely the tyres, though, you will have to pit at some point to put fresh rubber on, I'd say.
Yeah, Very interesting there, as we see both Mick Cooke cars go 1 and 2. So obviously with Scott helping Mick Hill get into provisional P2 at the time, he keeps him in P2 with Ando now back up onto the top step so far, nearly 10 minutes into the session there. So very clear statement at the moment between the Mick Cooke boys, 1 and 2. In this qualifying session with the championship leader Steph Francis right behind. We're yet to see any big hitters at the moment there. We're yet to see Matt Donetti for Hassel 1 Motorsports set a competitive time there, so he's not in feature inside the top 8. He's actually not near his teammate in Mark Hasseldine. So Matt Hasseldine for the Hassel 1 Motorsports so far looks like he's putting punching above his weight so far in P4. Really good there. And then we have the Kung Fu driver in Colin Fee running in P6. 1.1 behind, and Scott obviously nowhere near any of the drivers. Boris Blaznik, as we saw with Steph Franson, was right behind him trying to get a bit of that slipstream. 1.3 behind. Is going to get any improvements? Nah, 2/10 off from his personal best. Then Tony Griffin, and then we have Jason Oswald, P9, and this is one that's a very interesting one. I mean, I know we talk about the strong combinations of teams in this championship. We have Mick Cooke with Ando Scott and Mick Hill. We have Hooncorp with Lewis Atkinson and Rob Jacobs. We have Asta Racing with Morgan Davey and Nick Pfaff. These guys are really pushing themselves to be the best of the best amongst the competitors here. But I think the one thing that has been, lacking, and I don't want to offend anyone at Street to Track there, but I just don't know that if this duo, they're sitting third in they're sitting third at the team's championship, but I just don't know if it's going to be enough to put any contention into this team's titles, this team's titles race. If we have Asta Racing coming through with the likes of Morgan Davey and Nick Pfaff in this championship and trying to push their way up inside that top 3.
Yeah, well, if I look at the top 10 standings in the Drivers' Championship at the moment, there is only one team with 2 drivers up there, and that is Mick Cooke, so unequivocally the strongest driver pairing out there. While we don't have a Mick Cooke car leading the Drivers' Championship, they are still the strongest driver pairing out there at the minute, with the rest of them sort of having one particular standout amongst the others. Of course, one outlier for that is Asta Racing with Morgan Davey and Nick Pfaff, arguably just as competitive as the Mick Cooke cars, but Morgan Davey coming in after, I believe it was 2 rounds, so he came in round 3, I think it was, for the endurance round. It might have been for Spa, though, wasn't it? Round 2? It was indeed Spa, so round 2 for Morgan Davey. So arguably those two are incredibly fast driver pairing, but for Asta, just they had that one round where they didn't get those points, and that's cost them quite a bit. They're sitting 5th in the team's title at the moment, 598 points, so they're not completely out of the running. They're only 50 points technically behind Hooncorp and Street to Track, but yeah, Street to Track with one driver who's been completely dominating the Drivers' Championship and one who's been hovering around the top 10, not really the top 5, but the top 10, then it certainly makes it a little bit harder for them in the team's title. But this is why it's nice to have a team's title and a driver's title as well, because then you get this sort of nice duality going on.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's great, because you're always trying to be there to help your teammates out, really just try and give them as much information and data that you can that maybe one driver's doing compared to the other. So probably in the case of Jason Oswald, learning a lot from Steph Franson in this championship, or maybe just hasn't come to grips with the Master 3s in this championship. So he's kind of using this year as a learning curve, so then potentially next year or the next season of the TCR Cup, he'll potentially be bringing himself up right towards the front pack inside the top 5 and even on the podium positioning. So it's all a bit of a learning curve for him, but as if he keeps himself steady inside the top 10 within the next couple of rounds, it looks like they might be able to solidify themselves P3 in the team's championship. But there are other teams behind them that are not too far off. And as we see, as we've always seen with the team's championship and the drivers' championship, it does get very close, and it does intensify as you get into those final couple of rounds there.
Yeah, exactly right. So let's throw over to Andrew Scott and get some opinions on that as well, because obviously being with Mick Cooke, they are aiming for the team's title and would probably have hoped to get the driver's title as well. But is it more of a team game for your team? I can tell you as as the lead of Kung Fu Racing, we're out here to have fun and to drive and enjoy ourselves. We're not really worried about results and things like that at my team, but for the teams that can and have the ability and talent to really push the boundary of the team's title, it's got to be, it's either a choice or it's let's try and win everything.
Yeah, it's definitely for me, Cougar, this season. Season 3 of TCR is all about the three-peat for us as a team. So we're focusing on that. Unfortunately, I've had a couple of work commitments that have made me miss around here or there as well. So I'm out for the driver's title this time round, unfortunately. But definitely we want to do well as a team. It's all about the three-peat for us. So we're working well as a team. And talking about working as a team, Jason Oswald, he may be the #2 driver at Street to Track, but he can hold his own. And it looks like they're teaming up now, and they might have just set up the Handsome Banana, the Flying Dutchman, for a purple lap here as Goju just got out of the way then for him to continue, and he's 4/10 purple.
Ooh, wow. Okay, so that's the obviously a 0.45 gap right now between Steph Franson and Andrew Scott on track, and I think there's 2/1000ths of a second between Ando and Mick Hill. So yeah, the teamwork starting to come into play for the street to track drivers. Steph Franson obviously getting that early banker lap was very good. Over the line he'll go. Oh, it's 7/1000ths of a second off of Andrew Scott's time. That was a moment on the entrance of braking there. Not sure if he was just trying to pull out of a lap, but it was certainly an interesting maneuver.
Yeah, it's, interesting. What they did was they finished up the drafting before the bus stop. I think they're going to have to regroup here and have a rethink about it, and they're going to have to continue that drafting after the bus stop if they want to get their top driver on the top step and pole position this round. So let's see what they do in the next lap or two.
Yeah, absolutely. That's about 9.0093 10,000ths of a second separating the top three. It is absolutely close. And as you called it there, like, you know, you can get one section of the back straight going into the Le Mans chicane. You know, you're always helping the teammate out. They're going to get that slipstream in going into the Le Mans chicane, but then you kind of have to compromise a little bit your entry speed. You have to brake a little bit earlier. You might have to pluck down an extra gear just to get the turn in point. So it kind of bogs the car down a little bit as soon as you come up to the second banking where we are seeing Mark Hasseltine in car number 16. It kind of just bogs the car down a little bit. Yes, you might be up on Delta and on time, but as we saw with the Me Cougar boys in a couple of frames ago, we saw them literally nose to tail with each other, just pushing each other and just finding those few hundreds and few thousands just to help each other to get that slipstream. And I think that's definitely what cost Franson just a little bit of time there. And obviously 0.007 behind Ando Scott and 0.009 behind Mick Hill. It's very fine margins here so far in this qualifying session.
Yeah, it's really nice
to go again now as well. The street to track guys are about to cross the line, and they've just formed up for another go at this.
There we go. Yes, indeed. So they're going to have another crack, see if they can find that 9/1000ths of a second. There is a huge gap, of course, back to, they're going to go into the pits. So, no, they're going to go into the pits, grab a new set of tyres, and then maybe try it on the next hot lap after their out lap, once they come out of the pits for fresh tyres. We are 17 minutes and 20 seconds through our qualifying, so that gives us 13 minutes remaining. Still plenty of time to have some laps set. And having, just under 1/100th of a second between the top three is fantastic. Then there's a 6/10 gap back to Matt Dernetti, who, him and Mark Hasseltine. Oh dear, okay, well, he's slightly taken a bit too much of the tyre barrier there, unfortunately. Haven't seen the Hassel 1 Motorsports cars yet do any sort of working together, so maybe slightly outside of their strategy plans for qualifying. Then also with Dean van der Zandt, well, his teammate Dave Chucky is not here in this lobby for qualifying at the moment, so CP Motorsports running solo today at the moment.
Yeah, it's kind of been a thing there for CP Motorsports. They always have one car, or they usually have both cars, so we just never know what the attendance is going to be for CP Motorsports. But he's actually holding his own there. Van der Zandt holding on into P4 at the moment, so he's actually just come across the start finish line to actually get that position away. So he's actually closed up a little bit on the Handsome Banana, so he's 5/10ths, just over 5/10ths behind it, where it was before 0.59 between Donetti and Franson. So it's going to be a nice little battle here. We could be seeing a nice little midfield battle that we might be seeing with potential of Dean van der Zandt, Matt Donetti. And there's actually the battle that I think is a perfect track where we see, Dean van der Zandt's qualities as a race driver. Very good on tyres, and I think the main thing as well, he's always been very good on fuel numbers as well. He's always been a very good fuel saver, especially in his time in the Surefire Supercars Championship, in the inaugural Surefire Supercars Championship, where he was absolutely controlling the Ford Mustang fuel numbers to absolute perfection. managed to get them in the right window, and that's what got him some very good results as well. As we've also seen him as a Pro-Am Division champion in the Player 1 GT3 Championship, so he's a very handy driver to have in your squad there. And I think now, as we have kind of criticised him a little bit over the past few rounds, not being up towards the front here, but so far P4 with just over 10 minutes to go, it's not a bad position to put yourself in if you watch all the chaos unfold between the top three. But as he comes into the pits, he knows he's down on his time, so he's just going to regroup, put on a fresh set of boots with 10 minutes to go, and go full send.
Yeah, it's going to make for a very interesting start. I mean, you know, you can be as fast as you want. You can have as many good team strategies in qualifying to get those early positions. But when you are bumper to bumper and going with potentially a very different initial strategy on tires, things can suddenly become a lot more confusing and complicated in the race all of a sudden. So, you know, for endurance racing, we always do say this, you know, qualifying isn't the most important thing to get right. That said, it can be if you do maximize it in the race, but it will depend on the choice of tires at the beginning. It'll depend on what the other drivers are doing around you, whether or not they're going to be much more eager to get past you in the early parts of the race, which is obviously where the early advantage can be gained. You know, make a good send on a car through the infill section or use the slipstream. In fact, I am predicting that we're going to see a lot of position changes throughout this race because the slipstream is going to be strong. There will be people on a lot of different sets of tires, so it'll allow a lot of strategies to catch up with other strategies. A lot of people will want to fuel save or even just not and use the slipstream to maximum advantage. So it's going to be a fascinating race, and yeah, so I think qualifying for the Nürburgring probably mattered a little bit more than it does here today at Daytona because things can switch up very, very quickly on these long straights.
Benson's on a flyer here, folks. They've just gone through the bus stop, and he is purple, and he's right in the slip of his teammate. They have timed this to perfection. As he comes across the line here, he's going to be sucked along nicely, and he is looking to go to the top step here.
It looks very close there. He's right in the clutches of the slipstream. I wonder if maybe Oswald might slow the car down a little bit just to help him with a little bit more straight line speed. But come across the line doesn't improve though. So 0.162 down on his time there. So it definitely has to be the exit of the Le Mans chicane that where the Meat Cougars have actually found a lot of pace in their cars, because going onto the exit of the the Le Mans chicane, and then on the back banking, they seem to find so much time there, George, and you know that's why they're so far ahead. Or not, I wouldn't even say so far ahead, but it looks like their tactics are just working compared to the street to track drivers.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, I think you were saying the right thing there, where Jason Oswald probably needed to just slow down just that little bit, just to give an extra bit of slipstream power, because the power of the slipstream is relative to the distance you are behind. So we did see the Meat Cougar cars. They were following really, really close together to maximize that slipstream. And I get the feeling that maybe, you know, Steph Frentzen had a bad exit, as you said, through the Le Mans chicane. But then obviously the gap was just that little bit too much to get maximal slipstream. I mean, we saw him, he was up at the end of Sector 2, and then Sector 3 basically lost 0.3 of a second through there. So I'm guessing that's got to be the distance that he was running behind his teammate, and it just wasn't an effective slipstream at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple of, we're going to have to give out a couple of honourable mentions here with just nearly 7 minutes to go. We have to look at Mark Hasseldine down at P6. He's doing very well for himself. He's 0.1 ahead of Tony Griffin and Andrew N. So even the Mad Turtle drivers in Tony Griffin and Andrew are doing really nicely there, 7th and 8th place. As we did cut away from Matt Donetti, he was on a purple lap going on to the first banking as he comes across to the comes across to the Le Mans chicane. He won't be far off getting himself maybe a potential few more flyers on his name. But very good performance here by the Hassel 1 team to be 5th and 6th at the moment. So as we say, Jason Oswald still can't find any improvements there. Still a 54 flat as his personal best, 1.4 behind Nick Hill as the provisional pole sitter with just 6.5 minutes to go. And we have Shane Adder not too far behind as well, so 0.007 behind Jason Oswald. So obviously he must love his cocktails shaken not stirred if he's down 0.007
yes
behind.
we had some discussions at Kung Fu Racing Team. We love the place and not the circuit as much. That was the overall vibe I got from the drivers for this round. So we're not the biggest fans. I actually really like the circuit, but my drivers were not so keen. So you know, there was a few drinks last night, let's just put it that way, and we enjoyed ourselves at Daytona and got ourselves ready to enjoy the race as much as we possibly could. A little bit of a hangover there maybe for a couple of the guys, but yeah, they hold their liquor pretty well. So we're out here to have some fun today for Kung Fu Racing. We're on board with the rear wing of Jason Oswald, and just bear in mind the gap between Boris Blazanek in P11 and Shane Attard. It's 7/1000ths of a second apiece. So it's actually very, very close here between P11, 12, and 13. And we might see these drivers switch up towards the end of qualifying, which is coming up in about 6 minutes and 20 seconds. We're on board with the rear wing of Jason Oswald as we see his teammate Steph Franson try and get closer into that slipstream. And this is
right this time.
They might have it right. It does look a lot better, doesn't it?
He's looking really good, Franson, now. He's 3/10 purple. Now he's right under the wing of his teammate. And interestingly, they're drafting. They're not bump drafting. So the Me Cougar boys are bump drafting, whereas this is just a concerted effort just to get Franson that flying lap. Look at that. Perfect timing as they go over the line.
Ooh.
Comes through, goes through to get purple. The purple lap time of the 52.4. So that time was absolutely perfect. As called by Ando Scott there. So you could just see how much the car was pulling in onto that front straight. It just gave Jason Oswald a bit of a tap there, so that may have just lost a few hundredths to the name of Steph Franson, but that's still pretty a handy time there to sit in pole position with 4.5 minutes to go. With less than 4.5 minutes to go, Steph Franson, the championship leader, leads the way. So the Me Cougar boys are still in the pit lane, so it doesn't look like they're going out just yet. They may wait for the last little bit and try and get themselves one more run to have a go at bump drafting each other. But noticing as well there, now you have to think, now that Steph Franson is on pole position, will they reverse it? Will they go for a bit of a different strategy? Will they change the order up? Will Steph Franson go ahead of Jason Oswald and try and get Jason up inside the top 8 and potentially top 5? Because that wouldn't be a bad strategy. I don't know what the lap time that was for Jason Oswald as we were keeping our eyes on Steph Franson. So he's at a 53.9 and the pole position times at 52.4. If they want to try and get these cars in the contention for P2 on the Drivers' Championship, I think they might need to have a go at switching over and having a different go and having a bit of a role reverse, try and get Jason Oswald inside the top 8.
Yep, that's right. They could definitely go for it. Well, that's not going to help, though. A 3-second penalty for cutting the Le Mans chicane. That is a big, big danger zone there in this track. It's a couple of pixels, really. You have to cut the final part, excuse me, of the chicane. But doing so and running just that little bit extra wide will get you the penalty. And, well, this is maybe an opportunity, though, because it will switch up the position between them. But that means that Steph Franson's also going to have a look at resetting as well. There we go. Jason Oswald slows down. They're both going to jump into the pits. So we've got the two team working cars at the moment between the Me Cougars and the Street to Track drivers, both going out at slightly different times. Mick Hill will lead Andrew Scott away once again. These two drivers, it's probably a little bit easier to coordinate throughout the track as long as they're close, because the driving speed between these two is a little bit more even out than it is at Street to Track. We did see Steph Franson into turn 1 and through the infield just catching up maybe just a bit too much to Jason Oswald, and that's the tricky thing. But as you said before, I mean, they timed it to perfection down across the line. So beginning a hot lap now are the Me Cougar cars. Disposable Hero, that's Mick Hill leading away from Andrew Scott, both in the timing sheets by 2/1000ths of a second, P2 and P3 for these chaps, and they'll be going for their hot laps. So let's go on board and have a little look and have a little watch at how this looks from the following driver's perspective.
So I think what's happening here as well, I think Ando is looking to help Mick Hill to try and get himself up towards, get himself a little bit closer towards Steph Franson, because Ando was a little bit compromised going into those first couple of corners there, obviously being in close proximity to the other car. You do get a little bit of the dirty air, a little bit of an aero wash on the car, so you can see there, just trying to find a little bit of clear air just to try and cool the engine down and try not to get too much of the aero effect coming off the rear wing of the Mazda 3 of Mick Hill. But he's going to try and help him, I think. So we'll keep an eye on the sector times on our secondary cameras very soon to see what happens here. He's 0.046 down on his personal there, so he's not out of it just yet. But the good thing as well that Mick Hill has, he's got a benefit of another slipstream as well. So if Ando Scott actually pushes him, or now I say that, is actually pulled off to the side, and lo and behold, it was a Street to Track car. So I don't think Street to Track want to be helping the Me Cougars get themselves on pole position. But so far, looks like it's working well. The braking into Le Mans chicane Ando brakes a little bit earlier, just slows his runs down to maximize the exit. As he's done so right now, Mick Hill goes a little bit more aggressive on the infield section, but still just under 2/10 down, and it's all about trying to see what he can do to help Mick Hill get close to that pole position time that was set by a 1 minute 52.443 by the Flying Dutchman, the championship leader from street to track. We've got ourselves 30 seconds to go until the end of this qualifying session. There's one more run for the Mean Cougar boys. Can they get themselves a little bit closer to the front? They don't. So that did not work out this time. So they've got one more opportunity to try and get themselves towards the front. As we said, it is endurance racing, so qualifying doesn't really matter too much. It's all about the long picture for the 90 minutes ahead. But it's all about getting bragging rights. It's all about getting those couple of extra points to help you in the team's championship, and especially for Mick Hill, who has been featuring all the races so far in season 2024 of the TCR Championship. I'm pretty sure Ando Scott's trying to help his teammate as much as he can to try and have a go, and he's actually purple in the first sector, so 0.054. This could be really close here, George, if they align their cars, but Mick Hill just runs wide. It catches the curbing there, he catches the marbling, and that's going to be the end of it, unfortunately. Put a commentator's curse on car number 3. Don't hate me, Mick Hill. That was unfortunate on your end, but it was very close. It was very fine margins. What about Ando Scott? Is he up on his time? We'll have to find out very soon as he crosses the line as he comes to sector 3.
Yes, indeed. Let's keep a very close eye on this. There'll be an opportunity for Mick Hill to maybe do a bit of bump drafting on the rear bumper of Andrew Scott's car. They will have, of course, the Le Mans chicane to navigate as well. Very unlucky for Mick Hill, just going wide at the horseshoe. Not ideal, of course, but still provides an opportunity. I do wonder if maybe with Jason Oswald giving full advantage with no bump drafting to Steph Franson, maybe just gave him the advantage in that he was able to use the slipstream just that little bit more to launch his car past, as opposed to one car getting a little, speed increase versus one slightly losing out. That might be what's going to get them this qualifying session. Qualifying is over, so those coming across the line, that is going to be their position for the race for the most part. Let's watch the Me Cougars. They're coming up to the front stretch right now. They'll be crossing the line in just a moment's time. Not sure if this is going to be an improvement from them. Andrew Scott will go across the line. Will he pip his teammate? There's no change at the front, and that is going to be your top 3. Steph Franson from Mick Hill, from Andrew Scott, Dean van der Zandt, Matt Dernetti, and then we've got Mark Hasseldine here. He's also finished. That's P6 for him. Tony Griffin coming across the line. Won't be an improvement for him either. P7 still very respectable for the Mad Turtle driver. Then the other Mad Turtle driver, Ent, has also finished his lap, P8. Shane, we've got Colin Fee here, P9. Shane Attard jumped up to P10. Then Jason Oswald. And we've got Brett Allen, and then Boris Blazenek has finished in last place in qualifying. So a little bit unfortunate there for some, I think, but nonetheless, what a qualifying session that was. So we'll jump over to the qualifying results. We'll briefly go through them. We'll start talking about the race as we do start getting things set out on the circuit, ready for what's coming up.
Yeah, and as we saw in that, as soon as we saw in that qualifying session, what a time that was for Street to Track to get that qualifying lap in, and for Jason Oswald to really pull his teammate along, obviously helping the championship leader cement his place at the front of the grid. So it is Steph Franson, the Flying Dutchman, the rookie, coming into the Trak Racer TCR Cup, taking pole position yet again. So that's a few pole positions next to the name of Steph Franson. He's been on an absolute roll here in 2024, and he looks to be running away with potentially what could be his first championship win here at Trak Racer TCR Cup. But it is the endurance round, and we do know as well, George, it is double the points in this race. So I don't think we've mentioned it earlier in the broadcast, but double the points. So a bad race for Steph Franson could really hurt the championship fight for him. But if he has a good go at it, he could definitely run away with it with potentially a round to go.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And, they've got plenty of points on opportunity here. So really it's about executing your strategy well. What tires do you start on? What tires do you go to next, etc.? How much fuel can you save in the longer outfield sections of this race? Can you stay out of trouble? Can you stay out of incidents and hold back on getting damage? Because the damage around here is an absolute killer. It is at all the circuits, but in an endurance round especially, when you're trying to manage a strategy, you don't have that extra opportunity to really account for the damage you might get. So staying out of accidents is going to be absolutely key as well. We're just going to keep on showing you the quali grid at the moment, but let's talk predictions right now. So in chat, Welcome in, by the way, to everyone on YouTube watching the broadcast. But do let us know who you predict to be on top at the end of Lobby 2's race. And we'll also get some predictions as well from around here. Let's start off with Andrew Scott. Some predictions.
Yeah, well, I can tell you right now that the drafting fest is going to continue from the Cooke camp. So if those boys who are in 2 and 3 can manage to find some clear air and team up, they're going to be hard to beat. So Steph Franson, you can never count him out either. So it'll be very interesting to see what his strategy is, how many laps he's going to do per tank, as well as what tyre he starts on. That's going to be quite important too for his race result, I think. But then you've got the Hasseldine boys as well. They're lined up together on the grid. You could see them working together as well, so don't count them out.
Exactly right. So that's going to be an interesting one. Teams that are close together, we've got the Hasselblad Motorsports car, we've got the Cooke cars. The Kung Fu Racing cars also P9 and P10, as we saw on the other screen. And so there's some opportunity there also for war. So 4 teams that are back-to-back with their qualifying results. And that's going to provide some interesting opportunities. And as you can see there, 14th, Dave Chucky. I'm not 100% sure if he's going to end up in this lobby or not. I think his car has been repaired, so he will be entering the grid for CP Motorsports after qualifying. So that should be at least an opportunity for them to do some work in this race. But P4 and P14 for CP Motorsports, I don't see them being able to use any kind of team strategy today. But my money at the moment on the Cooke cars, because them working together with strategy execution and a slipstream, that's a bit of a fiery combination, I'd say.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You can't fault a Cooke strategy, and we know Ando Scott has definitely been firing up the Cooke supercomputer and trying to get all the strategies out. Plan A, Plan B, Plan C's, but they always go for the Plan A option, and the majority of the time it always works out for them. So we'll keep an eye on those guys throughout this race. But I think for myself as well, I might go for a little bit of a different one. You know, we're seeing Dean van der Zande in P4. Yes, he doesn't have his teammate close to him, but we also have to remember as well, Steph Franson doesn't have his teammate next to him as in this field as well. He's starting in 11th place, so I don't know if we're going to be able to see Jason Oswald move up the grid unless he puts himself in a position to attack the Kung Fu and the Mad Turtle races to get himself inside the top 7 and potentially top 5. But I think for the race itself, and we know Dean van der Zande's craft, I wouldn't be surprised if we actually see a surprise here tonight. So I'm going to put my bet on Dean van der Zande to take an unexpected but yet well-deserved victory here at Daytona.
And I was going to say, guys, look out for some alliances that might get formed as well. There might be some inter-team alliances that form up here through necessity, and you might see some unlikely pairings, let's put it that way, throughout the race.
I think that's a very good call because, of course, you know, when we start out the race, it's a rolling start this time. So I'll be doing a 3-2-1 count-in to get across the line. That's just a heads up. So it's a rolling start, and that means that everyone's going to have a nice, easy way into turn 1. That makes it a bit easier. But as you said there, Andrew Scott, very good point, because everyone's going to have an initial slipstream, and it will be about not just overtaking the car ahead of you. It's also going to be about working together. And if you play nicely between, you know, teammates work nicely together, of course, but between teams, if you do decide to go with the patient option, you've got 90 minutes in this race, be patient, watch out for the other driver, and maybe be kind to them, and they might just be kind to you. And I think, as Andrew said, that's going to be a very key thing to look out for inter-team driver pairings today. So, chat, thank you for your predictions. We will be going out on track in just a few moments, but before we do, we have a little announcement to make around MotorMotion E-Series next upcoming bit of racing, and that is going to be the return of the Carrera Cup for its Season 2. So the Porsche Carreras will make a return for a 6-round season sponsored by Sterling Parts. So we're going to have a little look at Sterling Parts as well, because of course they are an aftermarket auto parts specialist with decades of automotive experience, and they're great supporters of MotorMotion, and return as the title sponsors for the upcoming Carrera Cup. They sponsored Season 1. They're back here for Season 2. So go and get signed up. The registration is available on www.motormotioneseries.wordpress.com. join in on the Facebook group and the paddock, get involved. There's plenty of teams looking for plenty of drivers at this stage, so go and get involved because it's a great way to get yourself at an entry-level event with not a lot on the table, to get yourself some relationships with other drivers and the teams, and that could build up to more entries into, say, the TCR Cup or the GT3 Championships, which will be making a return in 2024. So a quick mention here and a quick word for Sterling Parts, and then we're going to get back to chatting, and then we're going to go into the race for 90 minutes.
Racks on racks on racks on racks.
Here at Sterling Parts, we've got power steering racks. We do racks for Ford, Holden, Toyota, Mazda, Hyundai, and heaps more.
Power steering racks are a super important part of your car. Do you know symptoms of a bad rack?
If you are having trouble steering, this could be from low power steering fluid, or you could even have a leak in the system. If you hear a noise when you're steering, this could mean the rack has not been lubricated or is starting to go dry.
And the worst one is if you smell burning oil, get out of there. Stop, drop, run.
So if you need a new rack, Sterling Parts has some great racks for you at www.sterlingparts.com.au, your one-stop aftermarket specialist.
Fantastic. So we do thank, of course, Sterling Parts for jumping in as a title sponsor of the Carrera Cup. We're very much looking forward to seeing that racing occur. We're not 100% sure if there will be a broadcast at this stage. We will let, of course, everyone know. And now, I think, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to get out on track. It is time to get racing because Lobby 2's 90 minutes at Daytona for round 6 is just about to get started. So let's go out on track and get things started. And we'll do a little countdown. I'm going to try and be the lights man today. And 3, 2, 1, they'll go across the line. But here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. Going across the line, Steph Franson will lead us away. Mick Hill will be in P2, followed by his teammate Andrew Scott, then Dean van der Zandt. It's a rolling start, of course, so no one's going to be going for any early moves. No one's going to be too concertinaed at the beginning of this race, and looks like a great corner one for the Me Cougar drivers. Steph Franson just missing the apex ever so slightly at the beginning. Dean van der Zandt also getting through nicely. Matt Dernedy and Mark Hasseldine following on through, so CP Motorsports will be under pressure from the Hasselone Motorsports cars. Andrew Scott already looking very, very fast behind his teammate Mick Hill, and Mick Hill has caught right back up to the bumper of Steph Franson, is maybe looking for a move. It's going to be maybe an outside move into the horseshoe, and he actually got it done before the horseshoe, and I get the feeling there might be a tyre difference here. Andrew Scott making a maneuver as well. Steph Franson's driven off the track. Andrew Scott will go up into P1, and there's Dean van der Zandt as well has gone up into P3. A huge disappointment there for Steph Franson, who has to find himself in P5 in this race. And that's also Mark Dernedy for Hasselone Motorsport jumping up into P4. Everyone taking advantage of the Flying Dutchman's mistake at the first horseshoe, the first last part of the infield section, and that's going to cost him massively. But again, huge strategy difference are likely to be seen on the grid at the start of this race, and I guess Steph Franson was hoping maybe even to be running in a slipstream early on in this race. Instead, it'll be led by Andrew Scott, from Mick Hill, from Dean van der Zandt, from Matt Dernedy, from Steph Franson, from Mark Hasseldine as we head to the Le Mans chicane for the first time in this race. And look at this, 6 cars. They're separated by absolutely nothing. Beautiful scenes we are seeing at Daytona Racecourse. You absolutely love to see this kind of racing, but bear in mind, we are only 1 minute and 45 seconds into 90 minutes of racing. The bump drafting already starting to happen. Dean van der Zandt getting a little bump from behind from Matt Dernedy, and now they are both catching right back up, using the slipstream to maximum effect on Mick Hill. Mick Hill going to be under a lot of pressure into turn 1. It looks like Andrew Scott has got a decent gap out front, but not quite enough. And look, Dean van der Zandt is also going to be using the bump draft there, so everyone trying to push each other ahead. Oh, bit of contact though. Mick Hill has had Dean van der Zandt go down the inside, and that is Matt Dernedy trying around the outside of turn 1, and they're now all bunched up together, side by side through turn 2, and towards turn 3 we go. Nick, what a start we've had from these 6 drivers.
Oh, Matt Dernedy just took a 2-for-1 deal there as he goes on to the entry of turn 4, takes the P2 away from him, and that disposes disposable hero in Mick Hill for having any chance to help his teammate out, being a blockage to his teammate from all the drivers behind him. So it's now Matt Dernedy in P2. He looks like he's got a little bit of a pace advantage next to his name, but what a horrible start that was for Steph Franson. We saw here, he locked the front left tyre going into the hairpin, and that's what made his car go a bit wide. So that's what gave Mick Hill that opportunity to go for the inside move, going into the fast left-hand kick. Then Andrew Scott, out of nowhere, sends the car into the West Horseshoe and put himself up into P1. But here we are now, lap 2. Matt Dernedy is going to go for the bump draft. for the second time out in this race here. He wants to try and get the gap over Mick Hill, but Mick Hill's not giving up. He wants to try and help his teammate out, if that is trying to get rid of Matt Donetti, who is the meat in a meat Cooke sandwich there. I don't know what they put in their breakfast or in their lunch packers, but I'm not so sure if Jim Beam is the flavour of this meat burger here at Daytona. But what a start that was. Matt Donetti and Scott won second and first respectively, but Mark Hasseldine as well. So you've got two meat Cougars and two Hasselblad Motorsport drivers in there. Donetti's going to go for the outside move. He looks like he's got a good slingshot there, as they say in the old Talladega nights, a Talladega comedy show. It is a shake and bake. It looks like he's done that on Ando Scott. Takes P1, lap 3 of this 90-minute enduro. What a start.
Yeah, so he's just decided, nope, I don't want to be running behind any longer. And this will actually be news to the ears, I suspect, of the B Cougar drivers. That means they can run in the slipstream of Matt Donetti. They can use the bump draft to maximum effect, save a bit of fuel in this as well. Always nice, the strategy options being opened up. Matt Donetti will feel good in P1 now. But whether or not he's helping his strategy here or not is the question. We will at some point soon. He's just made a mistake there, gone very wide at turn 3. It's not going to help him, but I don't think Andrew Scott will be too keen to get past him. Yeah, I think you see the restraint there from the Mi Cougar drivers. They're quite happy to run in the slipstream, run long, save that fuel, because that's a big strategy call there from them. Matt Donetti moving out of the slipstream saying, no, you know what, I want that P1 position. Now all the pressure is on him, and he's going to have to be looking to save fuel if he possibly can, though that might not be part of his strategy. So out of the infield we go, onto the outfield once again. Dean van der Sant still in P4, Steph Franson in P5, Mark Hasseldine in P6, and then there's a second pack that's evolved out of this. So this is the top pack right here. Both Hasselblad cars. It really is the bread now, with a whole bunch of other cars in the sandwich. Mark Hasseldine holding on well to P6 and sticking in the slipstream of Steph Franson. Then it is Sir Did, so that's Shane Attard leading away the second packs with Tony Griffin behind him, and there's quite a gap opening up between the second pack, and we might even see Shane Attard make his way up towards the back of P6 and put some pressure on Mark Hasseldine. We shall see. Into the Le Mans chicane we go once again. Matt Donetti still happy in P1 right now. Good exit for Andrew Scott though, and we've got a very close battle now. Dean van der Sant is partnering with Mick Hill at the moment, and they are using the slipstream and the bump draft to maximum effect in this race.
Yeah, you don't want to be losing the front pack as early as lap 3, because if we see the likes of Matt Donetti and Ando Scott actually pull away from Mick Hill and the rest of the field, this could really cause some problems for the Mini Cougar boys to try and work together. But it looks like Mick Hill is slowly catching up. God, you can see the slingshot that he's getting, that slipstream that he's getting from the 787. And it looks like van der Sant's going for a move. Contact made. Oh, he's going to hit the side rail. Oh, that's so close between the CP and the Mick Hill, and the Mick Cougar driver almost ended in disaster there for Mick Hill and Dean van der Sant. How did they not hit the barriers? I will never know. What a save that was for the two. And again, there's still going contact there between the two drivers. A little bit of biff and barge there between the CP and Mick Cougar drivers there. Mick Hill not happy. He's waving the finger and saying, what are you doing to me? We've just lost this battle pack. That's promoted Steph Franson into position 3. Mark Hasseldine. Is he going to go for a 2-for-1 option? No, he'll just take Dean van der Sant on the inside at turn 5. Nicely done there, but that was a close call for Disposable Hero from having a huge accident, potential engine damage accident that could have happened there.
Yeah, almost certainly damage for those two cars, Dean van der Sant and Mick Hill. Mick Hill was sent, sliding. Essentially what happened, Dean van der Sant was trying up the inside there. It was a bit of a half-hearted move, unfortunately, and the door was always going to be closed because that's just how turn 1 works. Now Mark Hasseldine's going to be going on the outside. Yeah, look at this car. I don't think he has got the maximum performance in that car anymore for Mick Hill, and same for Dean van der Sant, who's now following in behind. And guess who's crawling up behind as well? It is Shane Attard for Kung Fu Racing. He's caught right up to this battle because of all the fighting that's gone on. They've lost the top pack now. The top pack now consists of Matt Donetti and Andrew Scott. Steph Franson essentially just saying, hey, well, the waves have parted, I'm going to go on through, and does so without causing any subsequent contact. But yeah, Dean van der Sant, a half-hearted move into turn 1, hitting Mick Hill, and a bit of a disaster between the two. Will they use the slipstream again? Looks like they will try, because they've got Shane Attard coming up on the side. He's going to get 2-for-1. Well, there's the difference. There's clearly damage on those two cars.
I don't know if there was any damage there, because I didn't see the steering on the Dean van der Sant 132 have any left hand or right hand down. Shane Attard around the outside, 2 cars on the span of a corner and a straight. He's almost got the move done. Unfortunately, can't get it done on Mick Hill. Almost got it very close there for Shane Adder to go from P7 to P6 and then up into P5. I mean, yeah, I don't think I saw any damage on the Van der Zandt car, and maybe I'm not so sure about Mick Hill. I think, well, we did see him going straight towards the tyre barrier, but I just don't know if he clipped it. Maybe we can let's throw it to our pit reporter for the first time in Ando, Scott Ando, about the contact there between your driver, Mick Hill, and Dean Van der Zandt. Huge accident, nearly a huge accident occurred, but was there any damage sustained by those two drivers?
Yeah, I can confirm that somewhat suspect move from Van der Zandt did result in damage to Mick Hill. He got speared into the barrier. Unfortunately, he's got front aero and front suspension, but it looks to be only minor, and I think they might both be staying out. And would you believe it or not, Van der Zandt got damaged the lap before in the same corner when he gave Mick Hill a nudge from behind. So he paid the penalty a lap earlier, but they look to be okay to stay out and finish off their stints here, and they've started on the mediums. And I can tell you, folks, the real winner out of this is Franson, who started on the hards. So he's got himself up into third position, and he's getting rid of his hard tyres now early in the race. So he is really in the box seat.
Yes, okay, that's interesting. So obviously their cameras didn't do justice for it. Obviously it looked like he did actually clip the tyre barrier there, but also very interesting to note there that Van der Zandt's got damage next to his name as well. So both number 3 and 132 have damage on their cars, but there's a straight line speed that you can get even when you have damage as well, Ando. You can still benefit from the draft, and you can see there with Mick Hill and Dean Van der Zandt, they're really taking this to their upper hand, taking advantage of that slipstream, and they're not really losing too much time. They're looking for a move on Shane Adder. Shane Adder giving the room, runs the car a bit wide, but he holds the entry very nicely there. But it's actually interesting that you can actually maintain the slipstream and not lose too much time when you're tucked in underneath the rear wing.
Yeah, they both look to have sustained similar damage to the front of their car, but it's only minor in nature. So they're definitely losing out because Sir Did's got round them pretty quickly. But now that they can sit in behind him, they may be able to finish out their stints and limit the damage.
There we go. So I'd like to also ask one more question. It is this battle, so four-way battle. We've got Shane Attard, then Mick Hill, then Dean Van der Zandt, and formerly Colin Fee, who's gone for a bit of a ride, and now Malevolent One. What tyres are we looking at this battle right now? Certainly of these top three between Mick Hill, Dean Van der Zandt, and Shane Attard.
Yeah, they're all on the medium tyres, George. So they'll be looking to do somewhere between 11 and 13 laps in their first stint, and their mediums should last them pretty easily. Although we've got Hasseldine here in fourth place. He's on the softs.
Oh, interesting. So soft versus hard tyres, because he's got Steph Franson ahead of him, so he's caught up quite a fair bit to Steph Franson. But yeah, as mentioned earlier, Steph Franson being allowed to get back up into P3. With the hard tyres, he's also still holding on, not too well, but still holding on within a reasonable distance of Andrew Scott and Matt Dernedy. So this is really working in the favour of the street to track driver, because he is not losing as much pace as he would have maybe expected to under the hard tyre conditions.
Is. What better situation than to have a soft runner behind you, bumping you along?
Yeah.
So the Franson is looking really good right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Very interesting, very opposite strategy to what others are doing. You know, everyone's starting on the medium tyres, a couple of soft runners, you know, trying to get themselves up towards that front pack, like in the name of Mark Hasseldine. But very interesting surprise there. And I'm not so sure if I'm a big fan of what's been happening over the first 7 laps here. Yes, it's a very long race. We were 12 minutes into a 90-minute race there, so we can see on the bottom of our screen there, we see Mark Hasseldine has made the move on the Flying Dutchman in the handsome banana of Steph Franson, the championship leader of the Trak Racer TCR Cup. But I'm not so sure if I'm a fan of what's going on track at the moment. We have the top 2 pack, Ando Scott and Matt Dernedy, running away from Hasseldine and Franson. But this all could have been avoided if there wasn't any of the contact that was going in the first few corners there. A little bit of bumping, a little bit of pushing and shoving. It's a long race as well. You know, you don't want to be doing things like that. You want to just sit back, maybe save a bit of fuel, save your tires, and just really compose yourself, because you want to get to that first stint in the pit window ahead of your rival, whether it's an undercut or a one-lap overcut or racing each other towards the pit lane on the same amount of fuel or on a different fuel strategy. But they're just really broken up apart now. We can see Hasseltine is broken clear off of Franson, and then you've got the pack behind. Shane Addard is breaking away from Mick Hill and Dean Vanderser, who both got damage as broadcasted earlier. But I just don't know. I'm not really a big fan of what's going on at the moment. Everyone seems to be jockeying for positions on lap 7, when this could potentially be a 30-odd lap race. This one.
Yeah, I think there's an element here of needing to trust the other drivers out on track, and for Dean van der Zart, maybe he was feeling a bit of pressure from behind. He was always looking up that inside line. He did that a couple of laps before he made big contact with Mick Hill. Mick Hill seems to tend to favour the wider line entry into corners, and then of course does close the door rapidly. So, but that is just a driving style thing. At the end of the day, you can do both. But when you're going for a half-hearted move, you're really just sort of mucking up your race and others. We'll probably see it again into turn 1 we go. Dean van der Zart sort of choosing the more defensive line there, maybe a bit worried about Andrew Enks behind, who is trying to make a few moves. But I think, when you're in a pack, when you know that you're within spitting distance of the lead of this race, and you've got the ability to do a slipstream, that means that really there's more contact here between them. So Dean van der Zart just constantly running into the back of Mick Hill and just putting the pressure on, and it's not really working out for him, and it's just not the best situation here for all of these 3 drivers in P6, 7, 8. And I think you just need to have a bit more patience, a bit more trust in the drivers. If someone's going to go for an overtake, okay, drop into the slipstream, keep close to them, and then if you really want to overtake them back, you certainly can. I mean, we saw this as well early on with Andrew Scott and Matt Dernedy. That position has, of course, now changed between them, but happy to run in the slipstream. Okay, you overtake me, so what? It's Daytona. I've got a lot of opportunities to continue to follow you around as long as I stay within a reasonable amount of time. You can understand that for some drivers out there, if I was following Andrew Scott or Steph Ranson, I'd be like, okay, well, this slipstream is going to disappear in about 5 minutes because I'm not going to be able to keep up with them on the inside lap. But having the patience to run behind a driver and with a driver behind you, and then just wait it out, you'll have an opportunity. And often it's going to come down to strategy calls. So a bit of patience in these situations is so key.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was funny that you're saying that you were trying to, if you want to keep up with Ando Scott. I mean, how many laps is it going to take you to try and keep up with Ando Scott? How many hours, how many days are you going to have to put in the sim rig to catch up with Ando Scott?
This is like one of the only tracks on the circuit, and it's only because of the slipstream that I'd be able to keep up with these drivers at all.
I am hearing from the pit wall, guys.
Go for it.
From IMAT's pit wall, they are saying that there's a bit of lag that he's experiencing. So I think Disposable Hero might have been moving around in front of him there into turn 1. So that might have contributed to that ever so slight contact. It was just slight contact. So there might be a little bit of lag, unfortunately, that's interfering with the racing.
Well, net code can always be a bit of an issue in these games. Multiplayer online games, never going to be perfect. No one's going to have the most perfect internet out there unless you're sitting in a LAN situation, all sitting on the same network in the same building. So if that is the case, I mean, yeah, it's a very good point. It was very, very slight contact, and that's all you need there, because the car, all the weight's on the front, a little tap on the rear, and the rear is already really light, and suddenly the rear is going to be turning around on you. There's no amount of counter steering that can help that. So it was, I think, Dean van der Zart probably should have been backing off just a little bit into it, but if you add netcode as well as that little bit of contact, it's just very unlucky for Mick Hill at the end of the day. But, we know how quick a driver he is. He'll be executing a strategy that's in mind, and Dean van der Zart will also be ruining that mistake, because we know that he's a fair driver, we know that he's a respectful driver, and we know that he wouldn't have wanted to do that to Mick Hill.
Absolutely, we know the caliber of Van der Zart and Mick Hill. Very fast drivers, respectable drivers. Both taking victories in TCR racing and in other forms of categories. So they know the racecraft that they can race each other very well. So, like you said, must have been just a slight error on the case of the netcode. Maybe just a slight bump on one end of the player's screen, and then the other one just doesn't see a thing. The car just jumps a few frames ahead, and they clip a barrier. So it is what it is, but that's what we have at our disposal here at on Gran Turismo 7. But we had our first pit stop runner here, which is Dave Chucky in the second CP Motorsport entry there, running down in 14th. He went from off the hard tyres onto the softs, so he's got a little bit more. He's got clear air. He's got Colin Fee ahead of him. I think he's also made a pit stop as well. So both 13th and 14th have gotten rid of their one of their compounds, is looking to go for a different strategy here, but they've got themselves a huge gap to the car that is coming onto the pit straight now, which is Brett Allen for Wicked Awesome Racing. And then we have P11 Jason Oswald, again, just running down the order down in P11. He's not making any inroads at the moment. We saw all the contact made ahead of him. He couldn't get past that early pack of that early peloton in the first few laps, but he's still stuck down in P11. So he just needs to come up with a different game plan. Maybe just try something a bit different. Maybe come in for an early pit stop. Maybe throw on a set of soft tires on the next stint so you can close up, and then maybe throw on a medium or a hard tire, just depending what he's on at the moment. We don't know all the information just yet, but he needs to come up with something else, because we have Boris Blaznik coming in towards the West Horseshoe, and then we are about to see Jason Oswald come through the screen very shortly. There he is. He's not too far. He's quite a fair bit behind, and they're a fair bit behind Tony Griffin as well. So it's kind of opened up a little bit here, George. You know, when it comes to a track like this, very powerful on slipstream if you're in a pack, but when you're on your own, it kind of tends to get a little bit boring sometimes. You're just trying to think to yourself, what's the next plan? What do I do? How do I get myself back into this front pack?
Yeah, with the slipstream here, though, I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, if you do start to fall behind the cars ahead, well, you know, they're going to end up on a better strategy fundamentally, because you want to be running up the pack. I mean, you know, between P1 and P2, it's a different pack. Then P3 down to essentially P8, McHill, that's a whole nother pack. So their strategies are kind of separated but in line at the moment. Whereas those running behind, I mean, Tony Griffin here, he's just going to be losing time after time after time to the pack ahead as it stands right now. Same with Boris Blaznik and everyone down the bottom. I do have to report that Colin Fee unfortunately had an off, got damaged, and that's what triggered the pit stop. So unfortunate for him, and likely on a slightly slower strategy with an extra pit stop. Might be that Dave Chucky's in a similar position. I'm not quite sure what's happened to Boris Blaznik or Jason Oswald, but certainly they've been having a bit of a slower time out there initially. Might just be running on a slow strategy initially. They'll catch up potentially later in this race. Again, the strategy execution. If you're starting down the bottom of the grid, you probably want to just get on the hard tires, get it out of the way and done. But that said, if I think about what I've just said before about staying with the pack, you'd probably want to be on the softer compound of time, probably a medium tire to start off with all the way around the grid in order to try and keep into that slipstream of the car ahead, because that's what keeps you pulled ahead. That's what essentially enhances each stint that you do.
Yeah, and we're looking at this battle pack. I mean, it's quite an open battle pack, like very well spread out battle pack, but the battle pack from Mark Hasseldine down to, well, we can say Dean Vandersan, and actually it's very surprising. Even though that Dean Vandersan's got a bit of damage, sustained damage on his car, very similar to what Mick Hill might have, he's actually running not too bad here, George. Like, he's got a bit of damage on his cars, but he's still holding onto the back of the 666 of the Mad Turtle driver in Andrew Ents. But you got to look up ahead as well. Shane Adard is right in the middle of the pack in P5, but he can see as well the Flying Dutchman in Steph Franson and Mark Hasseldine, and Hasseldine is not really pulling away there, so I wonder if these soft tyres are starting to degrade very quickly. That has actually brought the likes of Steph Franson, and he's going to start slowly bringing in Shane Adard into this battle pack for P3, because Hasseldine was looking to close up on Matt Donati, but he's actually dropped off a lot, and unfortunately for him, it's going to help. It's going to help him as we see some drivers come to the pit lane now. There we go. So Hasseldine was on the softs. Steph Franson on the hard tyres, 11% fuel plays 4, so the Flying Dutchman's going to have a little bit more advantage on the fuel numbers. Mick Hill's on 15% of fuel, so the first pit runners there. And what can you tell us what's going on in the pit lane? Looks quite frantic at the moment.
Yeah, here we are. We're in the window now, so that 12 lap 13 is when the cars are going to be looking to pit. And quite critically, Hanson Banana, he's getting off the soft, so he's only doing 11 laps on the hards. So that'll make it interesting. And the fuel usage as well is looking to be a telling factor as well. He's using a little bit more than the Cougar cars. So he's going to have to try and gap them, because he might have to do an extra stop or that longer stint on. He's done 12 laps on the hards. That the Cougar cars might be doing a little less than that, probably at the end of the race.
We saw the numbers there. We saw the numbers there between Mick Hill and Steph Franson. It was only 4% difference. So for Ando Scott to actually run another lap, obviously clear air, he's not being pressured by Matt Donati. I wonder if he's actually thinking about extending his stint maybe another lap or two. So, and maybe for Matt Donati as well, he might be able to extend his stint as well. So the two up front look like they're going to play a bit of chess amongst each other. It's all about who comes into the pit lane with more fuel than the other.
Yeah, so we're approaching 23 minutes into this race. That gives us, well, I can't do math on stream, but another 67 minutes to go in this round 6 endurance round. It does look like it's potentially going to be a 3-stop strategy for most. Andrew Scott, maybe give us a little bit of an update on what the potential strategies are here today.
Yeah, I think it is for everyone a 3-stop strategy. But of course, if you can do your longer stints on the mediums and softs, then you don't have to do as many on the hards, which we know are the slower, much slower tyre. So it looks like maybe 13 laps might be the optimal, lap count for a tank of fuel around here. And I can tell you in P1 and P2, that's exactly what they're looking like getting. And quite crucially, Matt Dernedy is exactly the same as Ando in front of him on tyres and fuel. So these guys have sort of worked together and to mutual benefit of both of them. But it does look like Ando's trying to break that slip now. So it'll be quite important for Dernedy now to try and stay in touch.
Yeah, I think
There we
he's
go.
actually broken away from the slipstream there. Looks to be well over a second between the 787 and the entry of Matt Dernedy in position 2. So it looks like they have broken away from the slipstream. Looks to be about a 2-second gap between them. So obviously maybe Matt's going to think about, well, I'm nowhere near the slipstream now. Just going to have to save just a little touch of fuel. Try and see if I can come into the pit lane with even 1% or 2% more than the car ahead in the 787. But we have the first of the pit stoppers here in position 5, which is the Steph Franson, the championship leader of the Trak Racer TCR Cup, sitting nicely in 5th place. Mark Hasseldine, who was running a very strong performance there on the opening stint on the soft tyres, has dropped down to P6, right behind Steph Franson. But we did see there was a discrepancy on the fuel numbers there. So the Dutchman had a little bit more fuel than Mark, and looks like he's paid dividends for the street to track driver, getting himself a position ahead of Mark Hasseldine. Shane Addard, who came into the pit lane a couple of laps ago, is right at the back end of Mark Hasseldine as well. Or he's actually on his out lap right now. Actually, probably pitted again, but he's actually on the out lap. He's actually closed up a little bit, so he's actually gained and benefited a little bit of time compared to what we last saw him, where he was actually far behind Mark Hasseldine, George.
Yeah, that's right. And we've just had the 2 leaders come into the pits, Andrew Scott and Matt Dernedy. 0% fuel for Andrew Scott, 3% on board for Matt Dernedy. So maybe a slight advantage there, but not quite as equal as we maybe thought. It's pretty close, though, at the end of the day. I mean, we're looking at maybe just a brief refueling. Tony Griffin will go up into the temporary lead of this race, still needs to come in for his pit, as I understand it. So Steph Franson will jump up ahead of those 2 as well. But yeah, the Kung Fu Racing cars here, interesting situation. Obviously, Colin Fee's done his pit stop before, so he's kind of offset from the main strategies. I'd expect to see him pit probably in the next 5 or 10 minutes, so about halfway through the stint that Shane Attard's now on. These 2 could maybe work together just that little bit. But yeah, can we have an update from the pit lane on Shane Attard and the situation that he's ended up in? A little bit of interesting work there by the Kung Fu Racing team, chaps.
Yeah, Attard's decided to do his hard stint now, so he's going to maybe go backwards through the field a little bit on this stint, but he did fill up with fuel. He's got fresh hards, and it'll be interesting to see how many laps exactly he does on them, because if he can do the maths right, he might only have to do 7 or 8 laps on these hards.
Excellent.
I noticed there, sorry to cut you off, George, I noticed there on the stream, on the pit board, that Matt Dernedy looks like he's actually come out on soft tyres. So he's looking to go for a bit of a fast stint here. So, and obviously we've seen the majority of the runners, minus Tony Griffin, who's the temporary lead of this race. If you can give us a quick rundown of what everyone's doing on this first stint after the pit window, with Ando Scott leading the way, who is the leader of the race, or the leader that has done the first stint on the first stint of the pit window.
Yeah, so the 2 leaders are on the softs now, so they look to be mirroring each other strategy-wise. And 13 laps from the tank, that's very healthy strategy as well, because at the end of the race, when they switch onto the softs, they probably only have to do 7 laps, on the hards. And interestingly, or critically, again, Dernedy did save himself a full second of refueling there, so he's been able to close the gap. He might not quite be back in the draft, though, of Ando. So if Ando can keep it clean now, he might be able to check out here, because they're both on the softs. Then we get back to the Flying Dutchman in Franson. He's on his mediums now, and he's already done his hard stint. So He's in 4th position now, net 3rd. He's still looking pretty good, although he is a fair way back from the 2 leaders. Haseldine, who did a soft stint to start with, is now on mediums. Then Sir Dids, as mentioned, is on the hards with Eccles right behind him now, who's coming in because of his damage. He's out of sync with the rest of them there. He's got a pit. And then, yeah, there's a mixture of hard, soft, and medium runners down throughout the field at the back as well.
There we go. So, no doubt the hard tires, if you have not used them yet, might be a good time to jump onto them. It will, obviously you'll go backwards quite a bit, but and Shane Atter will be in that situation. He's got Mick Hill and Andrew Ents coming in on them quite rapidly. Dean van der Zandt hasn't lost touch with those two, though, at this stage. So he's got a little bit of work to do still. And purple sector 1 there from Mick Hill, so he is going to be absolutely flying right now. He does not want to be giving a slipstream to Andrew Enks because he does not want Dean van der Zandt to get a double slipstream and get up behind him again. So Mick Hill sort of paced himself, I think, through that final part of his first stint, now in the second stint, and he's decided, look, it's time for me to build a gap, time for me to go for it. I need to put myself in a position whereby the 3rd and the 4th stints are going to be absolutely perfect. Steph Franson still holds the fastest lap of this race, 54.537. He's just set that lap too, so he is absolutely flying right now. And that was only pipped. I think the previous fastest lap was just above that. It was a 54 by Andrew Scott. But now that we've got these slightly different strategies starting to evolve, well, it's going to be interesting to see who holds on to fastest lap and who holds on to their position. But it's all set to change up again, Nick, because we're only a third of the way through the race now, 30 minutes through, 60 minutes to go, and we know how big the grid can change, how much the grid can change throughout 60 minutes of racing. We see it every single week over 2 lobbies, now with the 90-minute race and 4 stints with 3 pit stops. Well, it makes it a real challenge for these drivers, and of course they've got to use each set of tyre too, so lots of strategy decisions to be made out there for the drivers and the teams. And before I hand back to Nick, a couple of housekeeping items. You are, of course, watching the MotorMotion E-Series at the moment on YouTube. Give us a like and subscribe if you're enjoying the content. Get involved on the website www.motormotioneseries.wordpress.com for sign-ups for the latest series coming up soon, and open right now the registrations for the Carrera Cup Season 2. Plenty of teams after some awesome drivers out there. 2 divisions of racing over 6 rounds, and a really good way to get into the MotorMotion E-Series drivers paddock. And we're also on Facebook, so go check us out and give us a like and subscribe here. So Nick, this is starting to evolve quite nicely. The top 3 still in a bit of a league of their own at the moment, but I've got to take my hats off. Mark Haseldine, he is not a man we've seen up this end of the grid this season. Now he's sitting there. He's executed things well so far. It just needs to keep on holding on to a P4 position here. And if he could be in Steph Franson's slipstream, that would be excellent for his race. But that's, given Steph Franson's pace, certainly at the moment, that's probably looking a little bit less likely at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, no, but it's been a great result for Mark Haseldine. Obviously, we did see him on that first stint on soft tyres that really elevated him. So he's got the track position on this stint here, as we see Mick Hill looking to make the move on Shane Atter. A bit of a tyre discrepancy between the 2 drivers. But yeah, I think what Mark Haseldine has done is quite smart. Run a fast compound, get yourself some track position so that when you get on the next one, you can really cement your spot. But obviously, there are a few drivers that are also yet to take the hard tyres on, and that is Mark Haseldine and even Mick Hill. So I was about to mention as well, Shane Addard in the Kung Fu Racing 22. I think he's in quite a very good prime position here because he's running the hard tyres right now. He's got Andrew Ants right behind him, and then there's a big gap behind Dean van der Zandt. If Shane can keep hold of Mick Hill's slipstream, even though Mick Hill might be on a soft tyre or on a medium compound, if he keeps close with Mick Hill, he's done his sets, he's done his mediums, he's done his hards. All he can do now is run softs till the end of the race, maybe do a double stint on soft tyres, and that will actually help the Kung Fu driver elevate himself higher up in the grid if he actually keeps it very clean. If he get himself a very handy race finish for the Kung Fu Racing, they're probably equaling their best results as we saw them out last time out at Laguna Seca, obviously in the hands of yourself, George, in position 6. So if Shane Addard can get himself inside the top 5, that'll be a little bit of a bragging rights back at camp.
That's right, yep. The only best position after P1 is P6 in our books, and we've had 2 finishes in P6 so far at Company Racing. We're very, very happy with ourselves, I'll just put it that way. But we're stoked just to be having some fun out there. Certainly Shane Artard will be having fun towards the latter part of this race, being on those softer compounder tyres. But I think, the tyres, yes, going to be really, really important, but what's going to be most important is your fuel management in that last stint. Will you get across the line with some vapors? Or with some actual liquid in there is going to be the key thing. And it also does slightly depend on the timing of the last lap too, from the leader.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about trying to cross that finish line, get that fuel number right, because you can run all the simulations in the world, as it comes into the pre-race, talking to your engineers, talking to some experts, everyone's saying that we're looking at about a 40-odd lap, close to 50 laps, 40-odd laps around this circuit. It's going to be very close, and probably the drivers don't know this. So all the teams, all the drivers are doing the calculations as they are going well over 250 kilometers, or well over 240 kilometers as they go towards the bank, and just thinking, what is the next step? What fuel number do I need to run for the next few laps? Do I go aggressive? Do I save some fuel so that way when I get to the end I can push a little bit more? So many things that is going on in a driver's mind there, and I know Ando can back me up on this. When it comes to endurance racing, you have to have some sort of game plan when it comes to endurance racing. But again, you just don't know what's going to happen, because you just don't know what the situation could be. You could be up towards the front, you could be at the back, you could be in the middle. Everything changes and pretty much you change things on the fly as well.
Yeah, you've definitely got to be flexible with your strategy, but you definitely also need a baseline strategy to start with. So these drivers, they really should know within a lap or two of how many laps this race is going to be. And they should also know what they should be working towards with their fuel numbers. And it looks like some people are and some people aren't. So we mentioned Hasseltine there looking really good in 4th position. Yeah, he might be good there with track position, but he has got a fuel problem, I'm telling you now, folks, with well under half a tank of fuel remaining, whereas the 2 front runners have got a good 70% of fuel in their tank. So they're out there sitting pretty, because they've got track position and a lot more fuel in their tank. The Flying Dutchman, he's looking okay in 3rd position, but he also has a slight fuel problem. So 3rd and 4th place are actually going to lose ground to the 2 leaders in the next pit stop due to refueling.
Well, you have to think as well, the 3rd and 4th, they actually pitted, they did a 2-lap undercut on Ando Scott and Matt Donetti, so probably that's why there's a little bit of a fuel discrepancy at the moment there, but it is crucial, We saw the leader coming with 0% fuel, we saw Matt Donetti with 3% fuel. That's a second saved in the pit lane, so if Matt Donetti can keep that deficit within a second or a second and a half when it comes into the next phase of pit stops, that could really close up the gap, because looking at the moment there, Ando Scott in the 787 looks like he's extended the gap a little bit over Matt Donetti, obviously setting a fastest lap with a 1 minute 54.1, and that's that was a couple of laps ago there. 1 minute 54.181, 1 minute 54.151, 1 minute 54.228. George, that's some strong consistency there from the 787. The Meat Cougar is flying.
It is flying, and it's flying very consistently. I think you might have that autopilot button on in the 787 cockpit, to the point where the autopilot has computed the flight parameters, so to speak. I'm sure Andrew Scott is doing a facepalm right now with my terrible metaphors, but nonetheless, and that is super consistent. The autopilot that is the driver of Andrew Scott, just going with the motions at the moment, and that's lovely to see. Really nice consistency. He's obviously made a bit of an answer to seeing Steph Franson put in a couple of really, really fast laps. Purple sectors in Sector 1 and Sector 2 for Andrew Scott, so he is trying to go even faster at the moment on lap 19 and trying to push his way to just make a bit more of a gap to Matt Dernedy, to really just maybe a bit of psychological pressure here. When you see a driver going this fast ahead of you, you go, oh man, I'm never going to catch up with this bloke. I better just focus in on my race, and Matt Dernedy's actually been doing that really, really well so far. He's still got a closer gap to Andrew Scott than Steph Franson has to him, despite there being the tyre advantage in Steph Franson's way. So let's see across the line what this lap time is going to be. Is it going to be a 53? It might actually be. Let's see. Oh, really close, 1900ths of a second off of that time, but that is a stonking lap time. Purple on the car, purple in the timing screens there for Andrew Scott.
Yeah, Absolutely. So very good consistency there. But as you did say there, Mantonetti's not too far away as well. He's in the 54s as well. Definitely not as fast and consistent as what Ando's doing in the low 54s. But you look at his times there: 54.5, 54.3, 54.4, 54.2, 54.5. I think that's very consistent pace, no matter what. I mean, you might not be setting the world alight on purple laps, but hey, he's keeping up with the 787 pretty quickly.
Yeah, consistency is absolutely key in races like this, and it's always a testament to the driving skills as how consistent can you be, especially when you're not necessarily driving the car at absolute maximum pace. It's sort of like being able to go out of a corner at 85% throttle almost exactly every single time. It's that feeling of where does the car or where does the accelerator pedal fit or sit at 85%? What does that feel like? And driving the car maybe just a little bit underneath its maximum performance, certainly in terms of fuel and shifting, just being on top of that the entire time. But yeah, seeing consistent 54 is really impressive from all these drivers. And similar for Steph Franson. I mean, we know how quick this guy is, and he's showing his consistency throughout the season too, and certainly his lap times also showing that off. Those last few laps though, all 54.8s, all within about 4/100ths of a second of each other as well. So very, very consistent lap times, but not quite finding the pace out there that Andrew Scott is. And I think that's down to his, I think he's on soft tires now. So that'll be down to those tires just starting to degrade slightly at this stage.
Yeah, you say
He's actually
85.
on mediums.
He's on the mediums.
Oh.
Okay, so
Yeah. So he's still relevant, guys. This guy is absolutely flying on the mediums. So he is going to finish this race with 2 soft stints, whereas the 2 leaders have to switch onto hards at some point. So do not count the Flying Dutchman out just yet.
there we go. I got it the wrong way round.
And there we go, another 54.9. So he's only 9, so just over 9/10ths behind the fastest lap set by Ando Scott on a soft compound. So the discrepancy on the 2 compounds for Steph Franson is actually not that much, but it does run wide on the exit of turn 1 there. Also, I was having a little bit of a chuckle there when you're talking about 85% throttle there. I can't relate, to be honest. I don't even know what 85% is on a controller. So for me, it's just brake and then just full throttle at the exit, and Ando will just be shaking at me, just like, mate, you just need to learn how to save some tires. It's like, I just can't do it. But
Yeah,
but, hey,
it's the lead foot, 100% throttle, or the lead finger in this case with the controller.
that's right. But as saying that, I'm very impressed with the pace that Franson has got. So he looks like he has set his fastest with a 54.3, and that looks to be on the medium compounds as well. So you look at his lap times, even Mark Hasseldine, I think he is on the mediums, correct me if I'm wrong, Ando, but he looks to be quite consistent as well. I mean, maybe not as fast as Steph Franson, but 54.6 as his fastest lap. That's not a bad thing as well for Mark Hasseldine. So full props to him. Well done.
Yep, he's definitely showing some pace, but consistency is definitely his problem, but also fuel usage. So the 2 medium runners in 3rd and 4th here, they're trying to stay in touch with the 2 leaders, but they're just burning a bit too much fuel in doing so. So yes, they're going to have a tyre advantage at the end, but they're going to pay some of that back with the fuel problem that they both have.
Yeah, and I think with Hasseldine, he's ahead of Mick Hill, but Mick Hill is yet to run the hard tyres as well as Mark Hasseldine. So it'll be very close to see what they what they look like when they come into the pit lane. So doesn't look like they're going to come in, not yet. We're on lap 22, 41.5 minutes of this session gone. So we're about to approach the halfway mark as we go through the field for the first time. It is Ando Scott in the 787 leading the way, as he has done since lap 1. At the beginning of this race, where it was full sunshine, and now we're in the dusk and night time of the Daytona International Race Course. Matt Donetti in P2, Steph Franson, the handsome banana, the Flying Dutchman, whatever you want to call him, he's in P3. He's the championship leader of the Trak Racer TCR Cup. Mark Hasseldine, very solid performance there. In 4th, Mick Hill in 5th place. Andrew Ensch from Mad Turtle Racing, a very good, very handy position 6 for the Mad Turtle driver, looking to put on his best performance so far in Season 3. Shane Addard, car 22, in 7th place. Right behind him is Dean Van Zant in the 132, running very nicely with the Aussie Tyres sponsors and branding of the CP Motorsports Mazda 3. Tony Griffin and Jason Oswald rounding up the top 10 with the Mad Turtle driver a couple seconds ahead of the Street to Track driver. So one in 3rd, one in 10th. Boris Blasinic in 11th, Brett Allen in Soul Slayer, 71 in 12th place, and then we have Colin Fee and P1 Skippy in Dave Chucky, who had those early incidents early on in this race, well down the order in 13th and 14th place. So not the best race for both drivers, but they're looking just to help their teammates out and try and solidify some team points in what is a very close teams championship as well. But it is Ando Scott still keeping the consistency. God, look at that consistency there, George. 54, 138, 54, I think it was 129 on the last lap, now 54.2. It's, my goodness. I can't say I'm shocked or surprised, because we know it's Ando Scott and we know how he can keep hold of his tyres, but my goodness, if you're coming up towards the end of your stint and you're setting consistency with that amount of lap times and getting peak performance, it's absolutely incredible. And Matt Donaty, I think he's starting to drop off a little bit now. He's actually a little bit further back compared to what we saw him. Might be keeping in the 54s, but not at the consistency of the 787.
That's right. Mark Hasselin has come in for his pit stop, so as alluded to by our pit lane reporter, using a lot more fuel than he probably wants to be at this stage. Has 3% on board on the medium tyres, so jumps into the pits lane a little bit earlier than I think most would expect. And of course, here with Andrew Scott, I mean, I will just make the passing comment that if that was a 54.3, we'd be calling him washed at this point. Because we now have our expectations are so high that it has to be a 54.2 or lower, otherwise he's totally washed. We'll just forget about this guy. We'll take him off the cameras.
I think if he gets a 55 this lap, I think he's going to come into the pit lane.
Yeah, I think that's right. But we should be expecting some pit stops probably in the next few laps. Is that about right, Andrew? We're seeing about 2 or 3 laps more for most out on track.
Yeah, they are. The two leaders are absolutely mirroring each other, and right now Dernity's actually got a slight fuel advantage over Ando. Although he is dropping back, looks to be a significant gap now. But the Dutchman, yeah, he's on vapors. He might be in this lap.
There we go. Of course, we did see Steph Franzen come into pit a fair bit earlier than Andrew and Matt. And both of those, I think there was a 3% difference in fuel between Andrew Scott and Matt Dernedy. Matt Dernedy was holding 3% more fuel, so obviously doing a really, really good job with the fuel saving at the moment. And that will be saving him time in the pit stop, but he just doesn't have the pace at the moment to keep hold of Andrew Scott. The gap just continues to build, and there is Steph Franzen. He's going to jump into the pits now, and he will go for his stop. He's on 3% of fuel. This will allow Mick Hill to come on through temporarily in this race. Down the front stretch, Mitch Hill does come. In the background, Andrew Enks in P5, and then Shane Attard in P6. So the question is, who's going to pull the trigger even earlier? Will it be based on fuel? I mean, with 3% of fuel, you can't really justify going for another lap. So once you below that 5% mark, you really do need to jump in. Dean van der Zaan in as well, off of his hard tyres on 8% of fuel.
Yeah, I was actually going to say as well, from that first stint when they all came into the pit lane, I remember it was Mark Hasseldine, Steph Franzen and Mick Hill. They all came in at the same time, all with different fuel numbers, but it looks like, obviously, come at the end of this stint, the Flying Dutchman has actually come in a lap later than Mark Hasseldine, and most importantly, Mick Hill is actually gone 2 laps later than Mark Hasseldine. So he's been working really hard to save fuel in that car number 3 after getting the early contact with Dean van der Zaan picking up damage on lap 3, as well as Dean van der Zaan picking up damage himself. So it's a little bit of a recovery drive for the Mia Cougar driver. He's sitting in position 3 at the moment, but it looks like he's got a 2-lap overcut on Mark Hasseldine, so he's going to work that numbers pretty well. He's going to try and see if he can mirror or try and get to the same pit window as his teammate in Ando Scott.
Yeah, when we were saying this earlier in the race, just before the race started, that fuel was going to become a big factor, and especially with the refueling rate being 3 litres a second. So every 3 litres you can save over an opponent gives you a second out on track. So if you're able to sit, if you lose, say, 3 seconds to an opponent ahead, but they're using much more fuel, well, you will gain an advantage. We know that Mick Hill is one of those that is very good at doing the fuel save. And I get the feeling that in those early bits of battle where he was constantly in the wars, he got hit as well, maybe just used a bit of extra fuel initially, went for a longer fuel up, and then went, right now I can settle down, get into my strategy and get things going. We're just watching the battle between Jason Oswald and Boris Blazanek, so street to track versus war at the moment. There's Mick Hill in on 1% of fuel, ran it right to the raggedy edge there on his soft tyres, but he is now in, so we'll keep an eye on his exit to see where he ends up coming out. Steph Franzen now sitting down in P9, but he's coming through the Le Mans chicane, so it should be a it should still be Steph Franson ahead at this stage, I would say, but it could be reasonably close, and maybe Mick Hill's got something up his sleeve for this next stint. We'll see.
I think Franson might just get ahead of Mick Hill, but I want to see what the gap will be between Mark Hasseltine rather, and Mick Hill. I think it'll be very close between those two drivers because there was a bit of a gap between them. But I want to see if Mick Hill is going to maybe short fill the car and maybe just get track position, because that wouldn't be a bad strategy because we are well over the halfway mark of this race. So maybe just short filling the car just a little bit could save you a lot of time. Obviously on the pit exit and jump your opponents. But let's see if he actually goes for the full tank of fuel. We see Mark Hasseltine coming into turn 1 right now, 80% fuel, and more than 80% fuel going into the car of the car number 3 of Mick Hill. He's got a full tank in right now, coming out of the pit lane. Where does he end up in comparison to Mark Hasseltine? As we get towards our cameras there, yeah, there's a couple of positions behind there, but he's actually closed up a lot. So I think this strategy has compromised Mark Hasseltine. Although singing praise for him in the early stints, he's actually lost time to Mick Hill, and Mick Hill looks to be in the prime position to attack the Hassel 1 Motorsport Car 16 and get that position away from him. Obviously, much more competitive driver and a staple winner of the Trak Racer TCR Cup, but he's got the numbers and he got that 2-lap overcut on him that's actually helped him bring his charge closer towards the front pack.
Yeah, that's massive. And of course, he will have Brett Allen just in front for War, who does need to come into his pit stop probably this lap. And we'll have the slipstream there just to help him catch up to the slipstream of Mark Hasseltine. So this could be Mick Hill very, very soon making an overtake and getting up ahead of Hasseltine. And that is who I meant. I didn't realize it at the time, saying Steph Franson. Of course, he was going to be behind Steph Franson because the gap was massive. And of course, Steph didn't have a massive accident into a wall as well. But yeah, Hasseltine, I thought he might have been ahead of Hasseltine, but it's not worked out that way, but it will work out soon. Uses the slipstream now, a little bit of a side draft to get past Brett Allen. It's going to be a bit tricky because there's actually going to be more of a slipstream for the War car, so Mick will probably have to pull back in to the slipstream of Brett Allen and try and slingshot past and get himself up towards where Mark Hasseltine is. And will Solslayer come in? No, he will not. Bit of bump drafting being used. So that's the strategy right now for Mick Hill. And just keep it patient. There's still 2 more stints to do. And we're just past the halfway mark too. 50 minutes now gone in this race. Is he going to set up the inside? Yes, he is. And Brett Allen gives him plenty of space, says that's not my battle. Going to let this man, who we know very fast, to go on through and chase after the Hassel 1 car ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to go to our pit reporter, Ando Scott, obviously, who is the team boss of me, Cooke Driver Development, and also the teammate of Mick Hill. If you were in Mick Hill's position, you know you are going to be a little bit quicker than Mark Hasseltine, but would you have gone with a different strategy in potentially underfueling that car to actually get ahead of Mark Hasseltine? Because, you know, as much as track position is crucial around this circuit, and it can really help you benefit if you have a bit of help and a bit of aid of bump drafting, but would you have actually tried something different with the number 3 and maybe just go for a little bit of a short field just to get track position?
That unfortunately wasn't an option for Mick Hill today because with the stint 1 being shorter, he got damage, as we all know, with that incident. So we actually pitted as soon as the window opened. The Mick Hill supercomputers told him to come in on lap 11, but that means that he has to maximize his fuel for the rest of the race. So he's on 13 lap stints now for the rest of the race.
All right, interesting call there. Thanks for that. But we have the 2 leaders in the pit lane now, Ando Scott and Matt Donaty. So there's a bit of a fuel discrepancy between them at the moment. Obviously, we're going to see both of them fill their cars up to the maximum as Tony Griffin retakes the lead. Obviously, he did take the lead as both leaders were in the pit lane at the time. So he's going to have at least 1 more lap of fame, getting a lap of lead next to his name yet once again. But it is Ando Scott ahead of him, Matt. The Flying Dutchman in Steph Franson. This could be very close here, George.
Yeah, slightly. I mean, Steph Franson's definitely made up a bit of time on Matt Donaty. That is for sure, because that gap is a lot closer than it was a couple of laps ago before the pit stop. So it'd be, I think it's probably good to get an update on the tyre choice that they all have now. I think, as we have said before, Steph Franson will now be on the soft tyre, and that's evidenced in the fastest lap he set. Both the last laps, in fact, in a 53s, a 53.488. So he's
Wow, I did not
flying
realise that.
right
I
now.
did not realise it said a 53.4. But yes, go ahead, Ando. What are our tyre strategies for the front runners?
Yeah, so the front runners are all on softs now, so it's a level playing field for now with respect to tyres. And yeah, the handsome banana, the Flying Dutchman, Franzen, he has joined the party well and truly. He's almost within the slipstream of Dernity, who will have slightly better tyres though, because Franzen did pit a lap or two ago. So Ando and Matt Dernity have now got that Flying Dutchman to worry about for the rest of the race.
Wow, very close indeed. I'm very excited to see how this battle ensues at the end of it, because remember, ladies and gentlemen, Steph Franzen has completed his hard tyres, he's completed his medium stints, so the rest of his race is all going to be on the soft tyre. So strap yourselves in. If we're going to see a comeback drive, we're going to be looking at the man that is in car 72, the championship leader of the Trak Racer TCR Cup. He'll be coming through, and he'll be coming through with flying colours. A 53.488 as the fastest lap, set by 53.899. So now at 53.7. So Flying Dutchman, as noted in the nickname, is flying as the sun is rising here at Daytona Road International Road Course.
Yeah, I love the day-night cycle here at Daytona. It's absolutely beautiful. Lots of beautiful lights around there too, and great viewing. The track's well illuminated on the infield too, which really does help. Big difference to some tracks out there in the world that do not have great illumination at the circuit. But lots of light racing that occurs at this place throughout the year. And this is going to be a great battle for us to watch as the sun does rise. It'll be a little bit easier for us to see what's going out on track. Not that it hasn't been before, as I just stated. But yes, Steph Franzen, if he's going to be setting 53s on these tyres with now 35 minutes to go on the clock, he is going to be a very, very big threat that Matt Dernity is going to have to deal with first. Matt Dernity has not been in the 53s yet, but we'll see what this lap time comes out to. He's been driving well, but it's going to have to be a pretty fast stint for Matt Dernity. Andrew, sorry.
Yes, I'm just wondering, will they work together now to catch up with Ando? So that will be the next fascinating aspect to this race. Will we see a partnership form here between the second and third place drivers?
Well, we've said it before that it should be a yes, really, shouldn't it?
Yeah, to be honest, it's not a bad strategy. Obviously, Franzen knows that Matt Dernity is well ahead of him on track position and on a different strategy. But obviously setting lap times of a 53 compared to what we're going to be seeing on the first initial opening laps between Ando Scott and Matt Dernity, something looks to be happening in this lap here. He's not setting the world alight. He's going to cross the line with a 1 minute 58, 59.
Ando's had a whoopsie.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a whoopsie at Le Mans chicane
whoopsie.
there. Yeah, the Le Mans chicane had a bad exit, and he's lost a huge amount of time. That was a 59.2. 54.2 for Matt Dernity and a 53.7 by Steph Franzen. Well, in the space of about half a kilometer, this race has gone from relatively lukewarm to absolutely spicy hot.
All that hard work from Ando undone in one bus stop. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the most crucial corners on this track here. You have to get it right to maximize your pace and close up on your rival here. One accident, one mistake caused by Ando Scott has promoted Matt Dernity within the slipstream range, and he's bringing the Flying Dutchman with him. He's bringing him along. They want to work together. Obviously, Steph Franzen has got a bit of a tyre difference between the front two runners. He's going to be a little bit slower, but he is setting some 53 still, so he just needs to push a little bit more, get in that slipstream range there, Franzen, and you might be able to cause a little bit of havoc.
Yeah,
and another partnership now.
Yep, that's right. Well, they're all going to have to be thinking very carefully about what they do next. I mean, for Andrew Scott, the losing the 5-second gap there is absolutely massive. There's no more time to relax, no more time to be using that delta between him and Matt Dernedy to maximum effect. He's going to have to really think about what's going next and probably have to hope that Matt Dernedy wants to work with him to keep Steph Franson behind them. In the meantime, Mick Hill has made the overtake on Mark Hasseldine, so that is now set and done. Dean van der Zaan is closing up. So we've got two three-way battles between P123 and P456 evolving beautifully out on circuit, both involving a Hassel 1 Motorsports car and both involving a Mi Cougar car. This is super exciting. Also, just want to say, Mi Cougar leading a Hassel 1 car, leading a car that is yellow, happening on both sides, and it's a very similar yellow too.
There you go.
So just gonna say it, just gonna point it out. Very interesting symmetry going on the grid right now. I'm fascinated to see how these three manage this stint because yeah, Andrew Scott's gonna hope that Matt Dernedy wants to be friends today.
That consistency that Franson is putting at the moment, 53, the last 3 laps, 53.7, 53.7, 53.7, and the fastest lap time that Matt Dernedy set, a 54 flat. Let's go across to Ando. What was his last time on the last stop at 54.4? My goodness, ladies and gentlemen, this is, if strap yourselves in, we're about to approach the hour mark here of this 90-minute race. An hour, like 32 minutes or 31 and a half minutes to go. We've got one more tire, we've got one more pit window to go. And you also have to remember as well, the front 2 runners are yet to run the hard tires. So we are missing Ando Scott and Matt Dernedy from running the hard tires. Steph Franson, he's done. He's clear. He's done all those harder compounds. It's all soft for the Flying Dutchman. But look out for those front 2. They're going to be on the slowest compound towards the end of the race.
Yep, that's exactly right. We'll keep an eye on this battle, and also this battle that's starting to evolve between Mick Hill, Dean van der Zaan, and Mark Hasseldine. Further down the grid, we've got, of course, Andrew Eng sitting in P7, then Shane Attard sitting in P8. And then we've got a little bit of a battle evolving here between Tony Griffin, Boris Blaznik, and Jason Oswald. Jason Oswald has lost out the position of P10 to Boris Blaznik, so Jason Oswald will be holding on now in P11. So lots of little three-way battles starting to evolve in the third stint of this race. We'll be having one more pit stop before we go for the final stint. Most of the drivers, of course, being on the 3-stop strategies. Some will have had to jump onto the 4-stop strategy. That'll be the likes of Dave, Chucky, most likely Brett Allen here, as well as Colin Fee for Kung Fu Racing, who's had an absolute shocker this race, unfortunately for him, with the early contact or early damage. He ran off the track a couple of times and unfortunately ended up on an offset strategy. Likewise for these two in P12 and P13. But yeah, what a battle. And here it goes. Maximum spice, or is this a Scoville level kind of heat wave going on right here between these two?
Oh, sorry, I'm just looking at that leaderboard, just chopping and changing. Mick Hill and Dean van der Zaan, they're just swapping and changing track position like it's nothing. And it looks like we still have Mick Hill ahead of Dean van der Zaan, and it looks like a little bit of a PTSD going into turn 1 for Mick Hill and Dean van der Zaan, as we saw on lap 3 of this race, where the two made contact going into the turn 1 hairpin. And it caught me off guard there. I was just a little bit worried there. There was another accident was going to happen, but they've kept it clean and they are within a range of each other to help each other slipstream and maybe bump draft. So that way, when they get to the final stint, they can go full senator. But Matt Dennedy's actually gone a little bit quicker now, 53.739 as his personal best there. He's actually dropped Franson a little bit. Ando's still sitting at 54.1. So the Hassel 1 Motorsport car is a lot quicker at the moment, and the key thing is, what's he going to do now? Is he going to push Ando? Will he actually go for a move? I think what he's going to do is a bump draft. There we go.
They're going to try and shake the Dutchman, I think.
Yep.
They want to drop him. They want to leave him behind. He's too much of a threat, I think.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right, especially with that fastest lap being set. And I think Andrew Scott and Matt Dernedy, it's an on-track friendship starting to evolve before our eyes right now. And they're probably going to have a beer at some point together and celebrate the new friendship that is evolving between them. But a smart move at the end of the day for Matt Dernedy. It's really the only thing he can do, because if he jumps ahead of Andrew Scott, he won't be in a position to get the slipstream, and then he'll have to defend against 2 cars coming up against him. And he may also lose out the ability to save a bit more fuel throughout the remainder of this race, which could play into his strategy execution and a faster pit stop, especially with Andrew Scott and the P1 position being right there in front of him. So if he's able to save a bit more fuel, this is the smart thing to do right now and save a bit of time stopped in the pit lane. Steph Franson, that last lap of 54 flat, so he started to slow down ever so slightly, but with the two working together ahead, he is going to have to find a way to push through.
Yeah, he's struggling on tyres, folks. He's struggling on tyres compared to the 2 cars ahead of him. So he's got his work cut out for him.
Well, I think it's about a 3-lap difference between the compound of tyres that we're seeing between Ando Scott and Matt Donetti compared to the Steph Franson Mobile and car 72. But I was about to say as well, I was about to make mention there about the fuel saving. We did see there on the onboard with Matt Donetti, even though he was pushing the 787 into turn 1, he actually backed off, so he actually got off the throttle, so just to save a little percent of fuel on his car. So he did the right thing. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, he can save 1 second of fuel in the pit window. Ando Scott's been coming into the pit window on 0%. Matt Donetti's been coming in with 3%, 2%. So that's a second in the pit lane that he can save.
Banana's got a penalty.
Oh, that's massive. So that looks like on the exit of the Le Mans chicane, a 1.5 second penalty, and that's going to put him well outside of the slipstream range. He'll have to serve that immediately as well. So it's really kind of gone wrong a little bit here for the Flying Dutchman. We do know that he's still got to run another soft tyre. Well, it doesn't have to, but he will be running another soft tyre in his 4th stint. And that means that both Matt Donetti and Andrew Scott, who have to run the hard tyre, they will be feeling a little less pressure with the Flying Dutchman far off their rear wings.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're looking at about 48, potentially 47 laps at the end of it. So we're not even about 15 laps to go. They want to get to this next fuel window. So obviously with the strategy that has been working, and as was mentioned, as we're about to see Van der Zandt and Mick Hill again going into turn 1. Oh, I just can't look between these two drivers when they go into turn 1, but it's much more respectful racing. Contact made. As I say that, it was respectful, not so much on the kicker turn 2, turn 3. Van der Zandt holds the outside, which goes to the inside of the horseshoe, takes P2 away from Mick Hill. This is some good old-fashioned racing between Dean Van der Zandt and Mick Hill. This is what the boys are for, about getting the elbows out, biff and barge.
I don't think there's any alliances forming here, guys.
No, there's a friendship happening for one Mi Cougar driver, but it is not the one on the screen right now.
No.
Oh dear, yeah, so that was definitely an elbows out moment there for Dean Van der Zandt. Wanted to get the move done and has done so quite nicely. Does mean he'll be pulling along Mick Hill in the slipstream as they head to the outfield once again. So maybe that Mick Hill will now have his opportunity to do ascend at turn 1. It was a big move from Dean Van der Zandt into turn 1, this time done without contact until turn 2. A tricky one there. Stewards maybe having a little look at that post-race. We shall see. A great battle evolving between these two. So one battle at the top of the field, very, very much in the field of kinsmanship. And this one here looking more like rivals.
Absolutely. So maybe keep an eye on the last couple of rounds of this championship. But 53.8 set by Dean Van der Zandt on lap 30. So that's actually not bad pace by the CP driver. So compared to what we saw them last time out at Watkins Glen, where both Van der Zandt and Chucky were really struggling to get a grip with this car, he's actually found a little bit more pace. He's extracted more of that CP Motorsport Mazda and putting in a very handy position in P4. Started P4 as well, ladies and gentlemen, so if he can hold this, it'll be a big win for the CP driver and for the team as well. But we have Mick Hill right behind, closing in, brakes early, and we actually thought there for a second Van der Zandt broke a little bit too deep there. He did run wide, but he just managed to keep his pace on the exit of turn 1.
Yeah, one thing I noticed there, the bump draft being given by Mick Hill to Dean Van der Zandt, who put on his indicators to say thank you. So it's not all rivalry, not a complete total rivalry, that's for sure. There's maybe a friendship forming here as well, but yeah, certainly Dean Van der Zandt wanted to be ahead. Well, he's gotten ahead and he's keeping that position at the moment, and Mick Hill is helping him out in that little bit, but also helping himself out by staying in the slipstream. So maybe a little bit of working together for these two. Unlikely for them, of course, to be catching up to Steph Franson and P3. So this really is the battle for P4 in this race, and Mick Hill quite happy to sit in the slipstream, maybe save some fuel with Dean Van der Zandt behind. Of course, they've got Andrew Engst to maybe worry about at some point. He's in the 666 car, but he's got Mark Hasseldine behind him. So that is something Engst will be looking behind him rather than in front of him at this stage of the race. Continue to look down the grid. We've got, of course, Shane Attard in P8. fallen a little bit behind in the doldrums as well. No slipstream for this man for Kung Fu Racing. Tony Griffin still in the battle. Boris Blaznik falling back towards the likes of Jason Oswald and P11. Then, of course, Brett Allen, Colin Fee, and Dave Skippy, Dave Chucky, I should say, who's just coming for another pit stop in this race with 23 minutes on the clock. The friendship continues.
Absolutely. 53.8 set by Ando Scott, and Mantonetti sneaking the nose in turn 1. I don't know if he wants to pull the move just yet. I think he's just trying to fill the mirrors of the 787 there and doing the right thing. Just put him under pressure. I mean, it's always very rare to put the man in the 787 under pressure in any forms of racing. So anytime you can, you want to do it right now as it comes towards the end of this tyre stint, going on to the last stint, which will be the hard tyres for both Ando Scott and Mantonetti. But I will say very props to Mantonetti for keeping up and keeping close to Ando Scott on this stint, because both of them are absolutely flying. Still in the 53s, as we saw with the Stef Fransen. He was in the 53s, but he's dropping, and he's dropping very fast. We have Dean van der Sande in the pit lane, Mark Hasseltine getting off those hard tyres to throw on a fresh set of boots and some softs to finish this race.
So I'd like to throw the pit lane reporter, Andrew, in terms of what we've just seen in terms of the pit stops there. So Dean van der Sande, Mark Hasseltine coming into the pits. Mark Hasseltine's on 0%, but he'll be switching onto a faster compound of tyres now, gets rid of the hards. Are they good on fuel for the rest of the race? Can they fuel up a little bit less than you may normally do? What's the situation with their fuel, and is Mark Hasseltine going to have a fuel issue towards the end of this race?
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how much they put in. They definitely do not need a full tank. So if someone decides to be brave here, they could make up some time in the pit stop.
Okay, so Dean van der Sande has put 100% of fuel in. We've got Boris Blaznik in the pit lane as well. He's sitting in P11 as it stands at the moment. Let's see how much fuel Mark Hasseltine does choose to put in. Looks to be a full tank. So no one being extra brave in the moment. They're all probably trying to go maximum send. He'll jump onto the soft compound tyre, so looking to make up a bit of time towards the end of this race. Looks like Boris Blaznik's also going to go and have a full tank of fuel. As we see Stef Fransen now jump into the pits. So this will be the last pit stop for this man. He'll have 20 minutes of running out there. Only 1% on board. Is he going to be the one to maybe fuel less than 100%?
He probably could, because these, like I said, as we broadcast plenty of times, these guys have to run the hard tyres. So if he puts in less fuel, saves a little bit if he's in clear air, or if he finds himself behind somebody, then towards the end of the stint, he can really push the maximum of these cars. But look what's happening here at the moment between Ando Scott, apologies there, and Mantonetti. They're coming up towards lap traffic right now, and we have the wicked awesome racing driver ahead of him. I think that's Boris Blaznik that's just come out of the pit lane. Yes, it is. They're coming up towards some lap traffic at the moment, and when it comes to that, you have to remember Boris came into the pit lane. He's on the freshest compounds compared to Ando Scott and Mantonetti. So what does he do? Does he step aside, or does he just keep pushing?
Well, we shall see. Stef Fransen getting his fuel up right now. He's up 85%, up to 90. I think he's going for a full tank. I think that man wants to go full send at the end. Goes at 99, so not 100%, but close enough that it might as well be.
I think he's going to go for a 52 fastest lap here.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, he's entirely capable of doing so. We know how much pace he's got. But at the moment, I mean, the early pit stop, he used so much fuel at the beginning of this race. I just wonder if that's maybe compromised his overall strategy today.
Yeah, it was really crucial when he got that penalty and it dropped him off the back of the lead pack. If he could have stayed in touch with them at that point, that might have really helped his cause. But he's always been down on fuel to the two front runners who are sitting pretty. They're not hitting anytime soon either. They're going to have a really short stint to do on hards at the end of the race. So I don't know if the Flying Dutchman's going to have enough laps left in the race to catch them, but time will tell.
This is the lap traffic that we're talking about here. He's gone past the Kung Fu driver. Very nicely done there to let both drivers come through. But remember, Boris Blaznik has come into the pit lane. He's on a fresher compound of tyres compared to Ando Scott. So what does he do? Does he stay ahead of him? Does he keep that lap, or does he just does he have to surrender and drop back? Because the gap isn't too bad. I mean, the two cars are very line astern with each other. Both Mantonetti and Ando Scott behind Boris Blaznik, but I don't know. Like, is he holding them up?
I don't think Andrew or Mantonetti would be against having a little bit of extra slipstream from a back marker right now, to be fair. That said, eventually, especially through the infield part of the section, the cut of the course, it will be frustrating. And yeah, Boris is moving off the racing line as well, which is just compounding the issue here for the front runners. But it will be giving Andrew Scott just that little bit of extra overspeed on Matt Dernetti behind, who is falling slightly back at the moment. So this is working out, I think, for the 787 car. And Matt Dernetti is just going to have to hold on. 251 will be still close at the end of the day. And as soon as they get past the war car ahead, it will obviously go back to how it was beforehand.
He went full send. I looked in the rear mirror there of Ando's car. He went full send through the chicane there. Looks like he gained a bit of time on Ando Scott there, but he's might be just within the slipstream range. But Ando Scott getting the help of the back marker is starting to close up a little bit. So he is starting to reel in just a slight touch. Is Matt Dernetti, and remember, he needs to stay with Ando Scott if he's going to have that advantage in the fuel stop. As we see Ando Scott go past Boris Blaznik, it's not going to make it easy. Is Boris Blaznik? They both run wide going into turn 1, but Ando gets the move done on the lap mark on the lap runner in Boris Blaznik. They're making it very hard. Here's the car 17 on 787, but it's all about, you know, I just saw in the corner of the clips of my eye there. I couldn't believe how committed he was going through the bus stop.
Yeah, very impressive stuff. Mick Hill does come in for the pit stop now off his soft tyres, 2% of fuel for the other Me Cougar driver. And yeah, Matt Dernetti is going to need to do a bit of work here because Boris is really not giving up the position, probably in the way that we would usually expect for a blue flag to be doing. Of course, they do have a right to unlap themselves if they are faster. And yeah, Boris is on fresh tyres, so he's in a situation where he can equal the pace of these cars at the moment, but he really should be trying to get out of this battle if he possibly can. He's not fighting up there for a position outside of the P9, P10, but you know, at the end of the day, I can understand, but I also would say probably time to get out of this battle and let these two continue to follow. But Matt Dernetti will have the slipstream on Boris Blaznik. Boris will have a slipstream on Andrew Scott, and Matt Dernetti needs to be fast in this next couple of laps. Would really, really be key at this point to get past the war driver and get back onto the rear wing of Andrew Scott. Otherwise, Andrew Scott might just start to give him a bit of a hassle here, and that could be his chance of a P1 slipping out of his grip. So that was another full send through La Mancha chicane. You said it, Nick. I mean, it's absolutely full send, full confidence from this man.
I can't believe it. He gained so much time there. They could just see, obviously, on that straight going into the bus stop, Ando was pulling away, so was Boris Blaznik, helped thanks to the slipstream. But the way he managed to catch up was absolutely incredible. So he's actually pulled 2/10 on the drivers ahead of him, 3/10 potentially. But Boris Blaznik, a lot faster on the freshest compound, is going to look for an inside move. He throws the dummy out, but Ando runs wide onto the marbles there, and it's all being caused by the back marker and Boris Blaznik being the X factor in all of this. Boris wants to get the move done. He wants to get his lap back, but he's becoming a huge X factor and could potentially be helping Matt Dernetti on this final stint.
Yeah, I do think that Andrew is maybe a little worried there. Andrew, we'll chime you in just a second, but maybe a little worried that there was going to be a Dean van der Zandt versus Mick Hill incident occurring there with Boris Blaznik, because he was looking very keen to do a send up the inside, which would have triggered a similar incident. So, Andrew, give us your perspective of what's going on right now on track ahead of Matt Dernetti.
Yeah, this is very spirited driving by the driver in 10th. He's, as you said, fully entitled to try and unlap himself because he's on the fresher tyres. And Ando's on worn tyres, trying to look after his fuel. So that the last thing he can afford to do is battle with Budsy here. So, Matt Dernetti is staying relevant. He's in the slip, and they're about to come into the pits shortly for their last and final pit stop. So it'll be very interesting to see where they both come out in relation to Franson, of course. But yeah, no, Budsy's really mixing it with him here. This is making it interesting, isn't it?
It certainly is. And also with Steph Franson, he's being held up by Tony Griffin. So this is for track position. Tony Griffin is in P3 overall. Franson, of course, doesn't have to do a pit again, whereas Tony Griffin will have to, but Griffin is actually defending the position right now, which is making Steph Franson have to do a lot of work on the infield with his tyres and with his positioning, and certainly causing him to be compromised through most of this part of the circuit. Might be all said and done as they head towards the outfield, but yeah, Steph Franson is being held up right now, and there is our leaders, P1 and P2, into the split, into the pits with 1% and 2% equaling and replicating their positions out on track. So Andrew Scott with 1% of fuel, Matt Dernedy with 2% of fuel. So it's a 0.3 second advantage only in refueling for Matt Dernedy. So it's actually lessened. Andrew Scott's done enough to save a bit more fuel and save some time in the pits.
Yeah, he's done very well there. Andrew Scott's actually closed that gap in the fuel window there from a second to about 0.3, as you mentioned. So it was all about Matt Dernedy trying to keep close to Andrew Scott. He did that throughout all of his stints, but with the problematic lap car in Budsy 76, unfortunately that just really opened up the gap between them. But you look at those fuel numbers here, it's just so close to each other. You're looking at 38, 39, 40, 41. You mean if you can add up all the numbers, ladies and gentlemen. But Matt Dernedy, if he comes out and he short fills this, he could be who's going to
They don't have to fill up here. They do not.
Oh,
have to fill
they're both nearly matching each other as well. Ando's gone for 74, Dernedy's gone for 76. They both come out 1 and 2, well clear of Steph Franson. But remember, we only have about 12 more minutes to go. Franson is on the soft compound. The Ando and Matt Dernedy are on hards. So can Steph Franson find anything in his street to track mobile and get that car close to these guys and get himself towards the front run to the top step with 12 minutes to go?
Yeah, exactly. 12 minutes to go. Not a lot of time. That's about 6 or 7 laps now. And as Andy said, it'll be a 7-lap stint on these hard tyres with the P1 and P2. Steph Franson with the penalty and being stuck behind Tony Griffin for so long, that has massively compromised him in this race. He's going to have one more opportunity to slipstream behind the Kung Fu Racing car ahead of him. But yeah, he is way, way down on the top 2. And I mean, unless this man starts to set 52s, which he hasn't done, he is not going to be catching up, as far as I can tell, to the 2 ahead, who will be doing sort of 55s on these hard tyres. We'll keep an eye on their lap times. They're on an out lap right now, so it'll be in about 2 minutes time, 2 or 3 minutes time, that we get to see exactly the pace that these two are able to set. Dernedy, though, well within the slipstream. There was a 2% difference, so Ando Scott did take 1% less fuel than Matt Dernedy. So actually, overall, kind of equaled out the fuel difference and gained 0.3 of a second in that. So it's still close though between these two. But basically, even Stevens and Matt Dernedy will have to work hard, I think, at this stage to keep in the slipstream, keep right on the back of Ando, and then look for a move on the final lap of this race. So that's the only way he's going to get past at this stage.
I'll tell you what, I think the best on-track action was looking at the fuel numbers on the final stint there. Forget about the battles and the passes. I think the fuel race was absolutely brilliant there between Ando and Matt, who flinched. Ando put in 74, Dernedy put 76. So it was all about who was going to press the button first of like saying, get that fuel nozzle off, let's send the car out. It was Ando Scott that pulled the trigger, and Matt Dernedy just straight away said, I'm going to go too. But it was just a couple of percent more fuel, so I don't think he needed that couple of percent. But if it's 2% fuel that could cost Ando the victory, we'll find out in less than 10 minutes time.
He's definitely in the box seat. He's in the slip here, but I'll tell you folks what that was in that last pit stop. The fact that they didn't need to fill up means that they saved, or they gained 8 seconds on Franson in that last pit stop, because he did have to fill up. So there's your fuel strategy playing out right there, folks. It does pay to short shift these Mazdas.
Yeah, absolutely right. Every moment that you are stopped in the pit lane is going to cost you a lot of time, and so fuel is exactly where that strategy and the time save does come in. So you've got a short shift, you've got to hopefully save a bit of fuel in the slipstream as well, and then also being open to looking at maybe getting a bit of lift and coast into some of these corners, which you can entirely get away with these Mazda 3s. So there's a number of different ways that you can save fuel in this race, and as you can see, it pays dividends out on track. The hard tyre stint, had they been any closer to Steph Franson, well, it would have been Steph Franson's game, because he's setting 154s now. Lap 39 was a bit of a shocker with a 56.1. We're going to see what the lap time across the line for Matt Dernedy and Andrew Scott is in just a few seconds, but I get the feeling it'll be 55s or 55.5s or somewhere thereabouts, maybe even a bit faster than that. We shall see. So across the line, let's have a little look, and this will be the difference here. So 55.2, very decent lap time there. 55.1 from Matt Dernedy. And then the 54s here, so there's only a second difference, and if you're saving yourself 8 seconds in the pits, well, that's 8 laps. Well, we've only got 6 laps remaining.
Yeah, absolutely. So 54.2. So he's obviously the faster driver compared to the top 2, but Yeah, the gap is huge. I mean, I'm trying to hype it up as much as we can to see if we can get Steph Franson to close up. But when it comes to fuel racing, when it comes to strategy racing, you can't beat the Me Cougar boys so far. Currently P1 and Mick Hill running in P5, and both Dean and Van der Zandt in P4. So remember these two on this corner exactly on lap 3. They both came to blows, and they cost each other massively in this race. So what could it be for these two? Potentially, maybe even closing up on Steph Franson, maybe being a little bit closer. That would have been a really good fight to see the top 5 cars being line astern in this battle pack. And I want to give full credit. I want to give full credit as well to the Kung Fu driver down in 6th place, Shane Addard. We have to remember earlier on, he did run a hard tyre stint in that middle phase, but now he's on the softs at the end of it. He's well clear of Mark Hasseldean, but I do say that he's actually they're actually line astern now. So both Mark Hasseldean and Shane Addard are keeping themselves in close quarters here for the battle for P6. But these two drivers, both Shane Addard and Mark Hasseldean, I have to give them full credit for them. What a race these two are having. I think putting on a great performance is Mark Hasseldean, and Shane Addard to equaling his best position, equaling the team's best position in position 6. But it's only just less than 7 minutes to go, and it's far from over between these two. So Mark Hasseldean can get himself up into P6. That's going to be some very handy points in the
Yeah, certainly right. I mean, Mark Hasseldean's been having a bit of a fuel issue this race so far. I think that's cost him positions overall because he was running up there in the top 5 for quite some time. So had the opportunity to be further up the grid, but Shane Attard started P9, so has made his way up and executed strategy very well. And I actually do wonder, let's go down to our pit lane reporter, let's get some analytics involved in this as well. Tyre difference, fuel difference, what's going on in the battle for P6, Andrew Scott?
Yeah,
oh,
they're
that's very
both
wide.
Softs, and Hasseldean's got a little bit less fuel, but I think he's good to the end. But he does have worn softs. They're nearly 50% worn.
And he's picked up a 1 second penalty on the exit of Le Mans chicane there.
That's gonna change things, isn't it? Yeah. But yeah, Dids is looking better on fuel and tyres. So he's got a little bit in the tank to give it a bit of stick to try and stay with Hasseldean. But it looks like he's going to drop off the slip here, and that could be done and dusted right there.
Crikey, all right. So Shane Addard's got a lot of work to do now with that 1 second penalty. Just took a little bit too much curb on the exit of the Le Mans chicane. That gives Mark Hasseldean the ability to jump up back into P6, but I don't think this battle is over at all. Shane Attard's been looking quick. He's got the fuel and tyre advantage, and Hasseldean has to sort of cruise it back at the moment and lift and coast his way to the end of this race. So we'll keep a very close eye on the battle that's evolving there. We've also had Dean Van der Zandt and Mick Hill in the battle, but Dean Van der Zandt has started to make some more progress over Mick Hill. They were a lot closer a lap and a half ago. Now Dean Van der Zandt's got a 2 second or so gap. I wonder if Mick Hill's maybe had a bit of an issue somewhere through the infield, and that's not going to help him out in all of this race. Steph Franson's in the dog. Is on the hard tyre, so that's the difference there. Yeah. Mick Hill, sorry, Dean Van der Zandt, mediums or softs?
He's softs.
He's on the softs, so there we go.
Yeah,
that explains
the difference there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. A 54.1 for Dean Van der Zandt on that previous lap, whereas Mick Hill 55.7. So yeah, that's the hard tyre difference right there. Still keeping it within a reasonably good distance time-wise. I think anything around the 55s. If you're dropping into the 56s, you're driving slow on the hard tyres, but a 55 lap is pretty respectable. But that means that Mick Hill likely going to be finishing in P5 in this race. Dean Van der Zandt likely going to be finishing in P4, barring any major issues. Steph Franson's in the doldrums right now. He's got no one behind him, really, and no one really ahead of him. Although the time is definitely coming down, though. What would you say, Nick? I think the time is definitely shrinking between Hanson Banana and Matt Dernedy.
I don't think the time is shrinking, but I know what time is shrinking, though. It's the battle for the lead here between Ando Scott and Matt Dernedy. Strap yourselves in. We have 4 minutes to go, so 3, potentially 2 more laps to go until the end of this race. Watch these two duke it out for the battle for P1 there, and it's all going to be about when does Matt Dernedy pull the trigger? When does he go for the move? Is he going to do the typical NASCAR style-esque move where you sit behind someone's slipstream and then get across to the start-finish line neck and neck, make it a photo finish, or will he pull the trigger nice and early, maybe in the infield section, and get a little bit of an upper hand on the 787? But I think Steph Franson, I think his time's done. He's just going to have to seal P3 to himself. So I think he's done. He's happy with his. He might not be happy with his race. He might be a little bit disappointed that he's not in this battle pack, especially around that corner there on the exit of the bus stop. Picked up a 2.5-second penalty, and that's definitely what cost him the chance to fight for the victory.
Here we go, folks. Dernedy is in the box seat here. He is in the box seat. Andrew is a sitting duck.
Yeah, so it's good to
2
have.
laps to go.
Yeah, so it's good to have Ando coming back into the commentary box with us for now. So it's great to see him. And Matt Donetti's going to go around the outside. He's going to go for a move on the 787. It's a little bit early to do it, but Matt Donetti on the timer screen has taken the lead on lap 45 with 3 minutes to go. They're going to go side by side into turn 1. Donetti runs very wide, and it's too wide for the Hassel 1 Motorsport entry. The 251 takes too much entry speed and compromises himself and loses time to Ando Scott. I wonder, George, if that is done and dusted there, because there's not much time left to go.
There's not, but I get the feeling that Dernedy going to have another shot at this, Andrew. I think, you know, your night's not over, his night's not over. I think, Andrew, you've
Well,
been...
he's got dirty tyres. He's got dirty tyres here, so can he get back into the slipstream? That's the critical question here.
I think the
Because
gap.
he unfortunately got himself dirty tyres.
Yeah, but I think the gap is too much, because he had one chance, and unfortunately, I mean, I don't want to say it in a bad way. Unfortunately, he had one chance and he blew it. So I don't know. He's going to have one more lap to go. He's got one more lap.
If he can get in the slip, yeah, he's got one more lap to do it. If he can get in the slip, but I don't think he is.
No,
I think he's just out. Yeah.
Yeah, he is well out of the slipstream here.
He went for that move 1 lap too early, didn't he?
Yeah, it was definitely too early. I mean, if he had done that, I mean, look, they would have been side by side across the line. It would have been a photo finish had that been the last lap of the race. So if he had just hung in the slipstream, well, he would have been sent slingshotted out towards the outside of the course, and that would have been the perfect time to do it.
Yeah, we've all seen his pace through that bus stop. He's definitely had the pace over everyone through that bus stop today, hasn't he?
He
has.
Gained time there. He just gained a lot of time there on that bus stop. So he's so quick. I think he's probably one of the fastest drivers coming out of that bus stop there. Compared to what we've seen with the other onboards, he looks to be the strongest out of that Le Mans chicane. And he's not in that slipstream. He looks like it's about 1.3, 1.4. The gap between Ando Scott and Matt Donetti, with this being the final lap, ladies and gentlemen. We're about to complete 46 laps of this beautiful 3.5 kilometer circuit that is the Daytona road course, the Daytona International running the road course version. But for the final time, it is going to be Ando Scott leading the way on this final lap, with Matt Donetti going to be pushing every single little bit that he's got on those hard tires. Treat him like a soft tire, son. Go for it. Go for the full send. Go for the big brake moves and try and close up on Ando Scott in P2. But
it was a miscalculation. The more that I look at it now, he's just not finding time out there. Andrew's going to have the full send lap. He's going to be able to use every single resource that's left in the car. And I don't see it happening now. He's still just hovering outside of slipstream range. That's not quite in it. And even if he does get into it, there's not going to be a lot of overspeed to be gained from it, because he really needs to be about half a second behind Andrew Scott as they exit the Le Mans chicane. There might be a little bit of extra time to find there, but I think he's absolutely blown it here, Mark Donetti. What could have been? He could have been absolutely on for a victory. We've had Andrew Enks come across the line to take the checkered flag because the time has now elapsed that anyone going across the line now will be finishing their race. Hanson Banana will be in P3. Dean van der Zandt has cleared Mick Hill. Hassel 1 Motorsports, Mark Hasseldine, and Shane Attard still very close out on track, so we'll keep an eye there. But here's the bus stop chicane going through. That's not slipstream distance, ladies and gentlemen. That is not. And Andrew Scott, he will take the victory here because Matt Donetti is not close enough to him.
Absolutely not there. So that was the crucial corner on this final lap, ladies and gentlemen. Donetti needed to make sure Ando got a horrible run, and he got the best run, but unfortunately Ando looked like he got the best run out of them all. And for the final time here, 46 laps completed here at Daytona, and it's going to go to the 787 in Ando Scott for the Mia Cougar driver development team. Takes the victory ahead of Matt Donetti. A brave effort for the Hassel 1 Motorsport driver. Unfortunate enough to seal P2. He'll be very disappointed with that, with her making the move a lap too early. And the Steph Franzen, the Flying Dutchman, takes P3, keeping his run of consistency in this championship fight. Still leading the way in the Drivers' Championship. But this is the last battle pack here. We have Mick Hill will cross the line in P5, but it's going to be the battle for P6. Shane Adard is in that slipstream range. Is it too little too late? What's going to happen here? It's going to be
He's out of fuel.
and he's out of fuel.
Oh, no.
Hasseltine, he's out of fuel. And we have called it at the start of the race. He has been struggling on the fuel numbers. And Shane Adard is going to equal the best performance of Kung Fu Racing, takes P6 away from Mark Hasseltine. Oh, the hearts and sorrows of the Hassel One Motorsport, the cheer of jubilation for Matt Donetti getting a podium, but the sad sight of seeing Mark Hasseltine run out of fuel on the final lap on the exit of the chicane. Wow, that is absolutely hard luck there for Mark Hasseltine. My goodness.
He had it in the bag. We had a number. Well, that's really gone wrong, unfortunately, for the Hassel 1 team today, and that was absolutely their best result of the season. Sadly for them, Matt Donetti pulled the trigger too early, and Mark Hasseltine ran out of fuel. So that is a bit of a disaster for Hassel 1 Motorsport at the end, but nonetheless, still a very, very good result. Excuse me, a very, very good result for that team today. But Andrew Scott absolutely sent it. Managed to make it through. He almost had Donetti take it away from him, but Cooke will take home the full 102 points against Andrew Scott's name. Then Steph Cranston, early pit stop from him, didn't go quite his way, didn't save the fuel, lost 8 seconds at the end there, despite his competitors ahead being on the hard tyres at the end in comparison to his soft tyres. Third place for Street to Track. Dean Van der Zandt P4, that is a brilliant result and one of the best results of the season to date for CP Motorsport. They'll be absolutely stoked with what Dean Van der Zandt has done out on track today. Mick Hill in P5, Shane Attard in P6 for Kung Fu Racing, yes, equaling Kung Fu Racing's best result, and then Mark Hasseltine, what could have been for him today as well. Crikey. Let's look at the remainder of the field. Andrew Enks from Tony Griffin from Blazenic to round out our top 10. Then Jason Oswald from Brett Allen, Dave Chucky, and Colin Fee, who unfortunately the car had a fuel injector issue and we had to retire his car towards the end of the race. He'll round out the grid with a DNF, sadly, for him. Crikey. Gentlemen, we have a fairly large amount to digest today. Before we get into that, chat in YouTube, please do let us know who your driver of the day is today. Who stood out? Who made the best overtake? Let us know in chat, and we'll go to our driver of the day shortly. But gentlemen, Andrew Scott and Nick, crikey, what a race that was, especially at the end. This is the thing I love about endurance racing, is the strategies diverge at the start, and then they converge at the end, and we've certainly seen that today.
I mean, this is unbelievable. We thought the first endurance race at Nürburgring, we were through a wet, dry scenario, and we saw a last lap move between Lewis Atkinson and Luke Stone for the race. I mean, and these guys in Lobby 2, they pretty much matched it. You know, it's absolutely incredible. We've had 2 incredible endurance races here at MotorMotion E Series for the Trak Racer TCR Cup. Both of them coming down to the final couple of laps there, but it is Ando Scott that did take the victory in the way. Matt Donetti pulled the trigger too early, and he cost himself massively there. So very unfortunate for the man that was looking to take out his first victory in the Trak Racer TCR Cup. What would have been a huge win for the team if he got himself P1, and I'm very unfortunate for Mark Hasseltine. But we have to talk to the man himself, in Ando Scott. Obviously, he's been our pit reporter. He's been commentating live as well. He's been driving the car on the track there. I don't know about you, Ando, but what were you thinking when he made the move, when Matt Donetti was going to go around the outside of you? Did you think that was too early to make a move? Oh, looks like we have lost connection there with Ando Scott there. Probably celebrating with his team, but go ahead now.
Sorry guys, mic trouble again, but yeah, I was worried. He definitely had the pace on me on the hards. I didn't have the confidence that he did, and he was sitting there in the box seat. I was just waiting for him to pull the trigger, and I was actually a little bit surprised that he did it when he did. And going around the outside there on hards, in the marbles there, I think might have been a misjudgment, and it ended up costing him dearly. But still, I think my driver of the day has to go to Donetti. I think that's his first podium of the season, and I do remember talking to him after the race. He was actually really happy with his result. As he crossed the line there, he was flashing his lights and wriggling the tyres. So he was still happy, very happy with his P2, but what could have been. But for me, he's my driver of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what a great performance by Donetti. I think this, yeah, as you said, it is his best performance to date It's probably his first podium here at Trak Racer TCR Cup. We'll have to look back through the archives, but I believe it is his first. But, you know, so close to a victory. I mean, he had 2 laps to go. He could have taken it, but as you said, hard tyres, braking late on the exit of turn 1. It's very, very risky. You can do it on a soft tyre, and we did see that with Steph Franson and Mick Hill and Dean Vanderson a few times, and a few other drivers, but we never saw someone do it around the outside on a hard tyre. So very risky for Donetti, but it's still a great result for him, and I completely agree with you. And Scott, the driver of the day for my vote is going to go to Matt Donetti.
There we go. Well, there's about to be 3 votes on Matt Donetti, because my rationale for giving him driver of the day is going to be that without the access to the supercomputer that is available to the Cooke drivers, the Hasselblad Motorsports team and Donetti have figured out exactly the optimal strategy. And on top of that, executing that strategy, he was running behind Andrew Scott for so long in this race, and then actually made the very, very smart decision to work with him when Steph Franson came up on their rear end and started to put a lot of pressure on the top 3. Instead of taking advantage of the mistake that Andrew Scott made and the exit of Le Mans chicane, he in fact decided, hey, I'm going to work with this man. And if he had just calculated that overtake correctly and maybe moved it to the last lap of this race, he could have been sitting here with a race victory. But Matt Donetti, fantastic work. Honorable mention to Andrew Scott for a superfluous race and going from P3, I think it was, all the way up to P1. Steph Franson, things just didn't go his way, unfortunately. But let us know in chat who your driver of the day is. But it sounds to me like Matt Donetti for Hasselblad Motorsport is going to take the driver of the day honors for Lobby 2. So, as we do get ourselves calmed down from what was a very, very exciting race, we're going to take a very quick look over to what happened in Lobby 1. So the qualifying looked like this. Lewis Atkinson took out pole position, followed by Luke Stone and Mark Pacheco in P3. Mitchell Collin, Matthew Joynson and Nick Pfaff up to P6. Then Jeremy Crow in P7. Rob Jacobs took out P8, a very good qualifying for him. Then Troy Britnell, Scott Taylor. That's an interesting and odd out of position for Scott Taylor for Gridline Racing. Then Matthew Hatton, Morgan Davey down in P12, Michael Daly and Chris Paterjack. And I get the feeling that Morgan Davey might not have been able to make the qualifying there. So let's take a look at how this panned out in the race results for this. Morgan Davey finished on top. So P12 to P1, Morgan Davey for Asta Racing, and with Nick Pfaff right in behind him. So an Asta Racing 1-2 for these amazing drivers in Lobby 1. Then Luke Stone lost a position overall from qualifying, but still finished P3. Mark Pacheco with one of the best results he's had for PCR this season. Matthew Joynson in P5, Scott Taylor P6, Lewis Atkinson falls from the top spot to P7 in the race. And I did hear that there was quite a lot of antics on lap 1 with a lot of bashing of mirrors throughout the first couple of laps to change up the order. Then Rob Jacobs holds on to P8, so Hooncourt P7, P8, Mitchell Collin in P9, Troy Britnell in P10, Jeremy Crow for PCR in P11, Matthew Hatton for Juice Motorsport in P12, Michael Daly in P13, and Chris Paterjack rounds out the grid, unfortunately with a did not DNS for this race, so sadly had some car issues for Colin Racing Team and himself. Quite the round of racing between both lobbies, but Lobby 1 certainly was as spicy as it got. Lobby 2, fantastic to watch the drivers strut their stuff around there. So we'll talk more about what's coming up, because round 7, not round 6, it does say round 6 there, round 7 is Mountain Panorama. We're heading home, folks, to Australia in the lovely town that is Bathurst, and we're going to be going around this brilliant race circuit, my absolute favorite. Looking forward to seeing how the TCR Mazda 3 Group 4 cars are going to handle this epic track for 20 laps. So make sure you join us for the broadcast, which will happen next week. The drivers will be looking forward to this one for the penultimate round of the season. Gents, before we go and say goodbye, there's a couple of housekeeping items, but I'll do that just at the end. So let's have some final closing thoughts from you both for round 6, and what an endurance round that was.
Oh, yeah, what an absolute endurance round. I think all 28 drivers showing up today in both lobbies, both Lobby 1, Lobby 2. Unfortunately, we did have a couple of retirements there. A DNS from Chris Paterjack in Lobby 1 and Colin Fee in Lobby 2. But still, 26 drivers to complete a 90-minute race around this grueling circuit, which looks easy on paper, but is very tricky to execute right. And I will give full credit to every single one of them for putting on a great effort, putting on a great show here tonight, for Lobby 2 especially. We saw some great final laps as well in both Lobby 1. I believe it was going into the final couple of laps, it was Mark Pacheco that was leading the race with a lap or 2 laps to go, and he did lose the lead from P1 to P4. Luke Stone was on a different compound of tyres as well, so he was on, I believe he was on a hard tyre when he finished, and Asta Racing got a 1-2 formation finish going on to the final lap there. So Morgan Davey from P12 to P1, that's definitely driver of the day worth it, even though we didn't get to see the lobby. I'm still pretty sure that's any commentator in the world would definitely give a driver of the day to Morgan Davey. But lobby 2, that's where the action was, ladies and gentlemen. What a race that was. What some great strategic racing. We saw some very close battling amongst all of the drivers. We saw Steph Franson throw his name into contention at one point, but unfortunately a penalty and just not getting consistent enough on the last compound of soft tyres that he was running. He didn't even get a 52 as well there, George. So a very, or didn't even get himself into the 53. So really struggled on that final stint there. But he's still P3. He's still leading the championship as it is to this current date. It's all about him just bringing the car home in the last couple of rounds. So, and I'm pretty much excited bringing the cars back home to Australia for Mount Panorama Racing at Bathurst, and then the final round at Suzuka.
Too right. And over to you, Andrew Scott, for some final thoughts before we round things out for round 6.
Yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for having me once again, and great call, you two, once again. Well done. Yeah, really good to see some strategies playing out there and some ding-dong battles throughout the pack, not only at the front there. Honourable mention to Dean Van Der Zandt and Mick Hill there. I think they were just hammer and tong that whole 90 minutes, weren't they? Those two, they were inseparable. And well done to the boys in Lobby 1 as well, Asta Racing with a 1-2 there. So that's a big bag of points for them as well. But yeah, looking forward to Bathurst. Unfortunately, I'm going to miss Bathurst, and I'm gutted about that, but I'll be in Bali. So I'll be sipping a Mai Tai thinking about you blokes on Tuesday night.
Yeah, so we're going to be gutted to miss you, of course. So that doesn't sound too bad, but nonetheless, we'd love to see you out on track at Bathurst. Oh, well, I'm sure Mick Hill and whoever you bring in to the Me Cooke fold for that race will be doing an excellent job in that round, and the team's title at the moment sitting with Me Cooke. So we'll see if the round, the distance there, the gap, will be extended at all by Me Cooke. I suspect that it will. Steph Franson will have an interesting round 2, trying to solidify his drivers' championship for the season, and it is likely to happen at Bathurst. We may even see that he actually takes the drivers' championship overall based on points difference during that penultimate round. We shall see, and if he does so, it will just be a statement to every other driver out there, hey, I'm here to race, as is Street to Track. Nonetheless, thank you both, Andrew Scott, for being in the pit lane. Absolutely appreciate all the analytics today. It's been absolutely fantastic. And likewise to yourself, Nick Pautasso, for being an ever-present voice of sensibility and awesomeness here in the comms box next to me. A real pleasure. So on behalf of myself, George Cooke, Nick Pautasso, and Andrew Scott, thank you all in chat for joining us and viewing today's broadcast for round 6. We look forward to flying back over to Australia, getting the barbecue out and having a few beers in the sun as we go and enjoy the racing at Bathurst for round 7 and the penultimate round of season 3 here for the Trak Racer TCR Cup. Very much looking forward to it. So, a couple of housekeeping items before we jump off the broadcast. First of all, go and check us out on www.motormotioneseries.wordpress.com. All the articles, news, and standings for all of our cups and series out there. So go and check us out on the website. It'll also include the sign-up form for the Carrera Cup Season 2, 6-round season starting at the end of this Trak Racer TCR Cup. So make sure you go and sign up. We are looking for drivers. Please go and get involved. Lots of teams looking to pick up Division 1 and Division 2 drivers for the season. The Carrera Cup, lots of fun, of course. And they will be sponsored by Sterling Parts. We'll go to a short advert at the end before we close down the stream for Sterling Parts. A big thanks to all the sponsors that support us here at MotorMotion E-Series. So on behalf of myself, George Cooke, Nick Pautasso, and Andrew Scott, thank you all for tuning in. We will catch you next time. All the best, take care, and have a fantastic rest of your week. See you at Bathurst.
Racks on racks on racks on racks.
Here at Sterling Parts, we've got power steering racks. We do racks for Ford, Holden, Toyota, Mazda, Hyundai, and heaps more.
Power steering racks are a super important part of your car. Do you know symptoms of a bad rack?
If you are having trouble steering, this could be from low power steering fluid, or you could even have a leak in the system. If you hear a noise when you're steering, this could mean the rack has not been lubricated or is starting to go dry.
And the worst one is if you smell burning oil, get out of there. Stop, drop, run.
So if you need a new rack, Sterling Parts has some great racks for you at www.sterlingparts.com.au, your one-stop aftermarket specialist.